Okay, Chair would like to entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it on executive session. The chair will entertain a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
Motion.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Town council meeting will be called to order at 7:20. Sorry for the delay, but we have been in executive session since 5:30, and it's a busy, busy night tonight. So with that being said, roll call by the clerk, please.
Kerry McGee,
Here.
Greg LeBoissonier,
Yep.
Deb Bacon,
Here.
Gary Cody,
Here?
Ian Dickson,
Here.
Nicholas Gorham,
Here.
Ed Wazika.
Present.
Okay, I ask we all stand for a pledge of allegiance. Town Sergeant, if you would lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody who wants to stand can stand for invocation. Lord, as we gather today at this meeting, we ask that you will be in our midst. Help us to make decisions that will be pleasing to you. Help us be able to discuss the matters at hand in a responsible way and to be willing to give up having our own way. God, let this meeting be productive and should be in all areas of our lives. You help us keep you at the forefront of our minds as we do the work set before us. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Mr. Town Sergeant, would you give an emergency evacuation plan, please? Okay, President's comments. I just have a few. I hope everybody has enjoyed a good summer. I know we've got a little taste of the fall weather in this past weekend and what we have coming forward to us. Not looking forward to the snow. I know it's a four-letter word we don't want to hear, but it's coming. I hope, our summer concert series that we've had all summer has been a huge success. So I want to thank the Parks and Rec Department for putting that on, and I'm hoping that the taxpayers enjoyed that. Kudos to the police department. They always do a good job, but they did a real good job in catching a sexual predator in our bike path back probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. So they've been doing a good job. Also, I want to just state to the council and taxpayers, I want to maintain our decorum that I had stressed when I first came onto this council. I will give every council member the opportunity to speak on every issue, but there will be no blurting out what they want. You ask and get permission to talk. We look professional, we act professional. I'm going to ask the same with the taxpayers. So, like I said, everybody will have an opportunity to say what needs to be said. So please, let's maintain decorum. Also, on a sad note, we've lost a member of the town workforce. His name was Daniel P. Murphy. He was survived by his wife, Patty. They didn't have any children. He passed away Friday night after a short illness. He would have been 53 on Sunday. 18 years with the town. He was a part-time reference librarian. So I would just maybe ask if we could all stand in a moment of silence just to represent him, please. Okay, thank you. That's sad when someone that young has put that much time and effort into this town and passes at a young age like that. So, okay. With that being said, the chair will entertain a motion to approve of the town council minutes on July 22nd, 2019, and July 30th, 2019, and the 7/30, 2019 town council minutes. We could have a discussion prior to, if anybody has any questions.
Now it is.
July 22nd is not in our packet. Does anyone else?
I will have to double check on that. I don't.
They're not in the packet.
Okay.
They're not ready.
All right, so
as
let's
of
not, all right, let's leave it July 22nd out. We'll do it July 30th.
Carrie, may I ask, I didn't have time to read the minutes preparing for the rest of the meeting. Could I ask that we table these minutes until I have time to review them? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know what? I don't have a problem with that. I mean, whether they get
Is that okay?
done tonight or next, 2
Can I
weeks
make a
from now.
motion to table?
Yeah, we have a motion. We have a second?
Second?
We have a second. That's fine. We can just table
Thank
the
you.
minutes and, Madam Clerk, if you could have them all prepared for us for the next
Yes.
meeting, that's fine. Okay, the next item on the agenda will be the school committee report. Madam Chair? How are you today?
I'm good.
Thank
How
you.
are all of you? Good evening. So, again, this beginning of the academic year, beginning of fall. Coventry Public Schools grade students, grade 1 through 12, will have their first day of school this Thursday, August 29th. Pre-K and kindergarten students will have their first day of school on Wednesday, September 4th. We welcome on board our new bus company, Ocean State Transportation. Our students and families can expect state-of-the-art new buses to greet them on opening day. The list of bus runs can be found on our website homepage. We will be welcoming our teachers back tomorrow, Tuesday, August 27th, with an opening ceremony and celebration that will begin at 8 a.m. in the Coventry High School auditorium. And we would like to invite all of you and the town manager to our opening ceremony. So hopefully some of you might be able to make that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that date?
Yeah, tomorrow. It's tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
8 in the morning.
Yeah. I know it's a tough time, but it's orientation all day long,
So
you
much
know.
work, yeah, it's tough.
I know. I'm just taking the day off, you know, because it goes till around 10:30. But if anybody does have the time, I know it's kind of short notice, but if you could make it, we'd love to have you there. So our school committee chairperson, me, will be reaching out to our town council president to coordinate a joint workshop. I think I left you a message. I don't know if you got that on your phone.
No, not yet.
Okay. Anyway, so I will be reaching out. I already did, but I will be sending you a letter asking to coordinate a joint workshop between the school committee, the school department administration, the town council, town manager, and the town finance director to discuss the necessity for school construction process. Coventry Public Schools recently received a $150,000 grant from the Rhode Island Department of Education to assist in completing stage 1 of this process. During this workshop, Coventry Public Schools will explain the process we must follow to assess our current facility needs in order to be eligible for up to 60% reimbursement for major construction projects. The school department will review the steps which have been taken thus far and answer any questions the town council may have about moving forward. In order to be eligible for any funding beginning in the fiscal 2021 academic year, a letter of intent must be submitted to RIDE prior to January 15th, 2020. We look forward to having dialogue with the town council and our community pertaining to the facility needs our educational system will face over the course of the next 20 years. So I would think that this meeting will take several hours and should be a scheduled alone kind of workshop, not as part of the town council meeting. So we can maybe discuss, I have written the letter, it has to be CC'd to everybody. So maybe some dates can be discussed and we can come together with a, I don't know, figure out which day is the best for most of you guys and my side too as well. But you would expect to have a presentation from school department, maybe Jade, who is the project the consultant that we have that's been working with us, and we'll be talking about the whole process, which I think the public needs to be kept up to date with, obviously, and you guys as well. Congratulations to Sarah Bogdan, newly hired assistant principal at Washington Oak Elementary School. Sarah comes to us with a strong instructional leadership background from Bristol Warren School District. Congratulations to Mrs. Anne Marie Zaborski, who was hired as an assistant principal for Coventry High School. Anne Marie comes to us from the Narragansett Public Schools, where she spent 18 years as a high school social studies teacher and department head. Her last 4 years were spent as the assistant principal in their elementary school. 2018-19 was a very challenging year for our community as a whole. As far as our school community, we went into the summer knowing the budget had passed. We lost 4 staff members and 1 student from Coventry in a period of less than 3 weeks. We entered this upcoming year not unlike many other Rhode Island communities, knowing we face challenges with our aging facilities and sustainable budgets. But one thing One thing is loud and clear, and we have some of the most dedicated and passionate employees who put our students first. And I'm sure you feel the same with the folks that work on the town side as well. We plan on making sure that we celebrate our successes with our community. Coventry and Coventry Public Schools has so much to be proud of as a community. We plan on making sure that every stakeholder is made aware of these successes. So that's our vision for this year. Any questions, concerns?
I look forward to the setting up that meeting, and I think it's necessary, and no problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a report on Lake Tiogue. And I see Mr. Narkowitz out there, and how's your golf game?
It's really good.
Okay, good.
Jerry Narkowitz, 21 Beach Street, Coventry, Rhode Island. I've detailed some of the main things that have been going on in the last 12 months primarily. I know you got a big agenda. This will be pretty quick.
Thank you.
We've been doing watershed testing again this year, and it's actually coming out better than previous years. Our bacterial level's lower, our temperature's lower, our clarity's about the same. So all good from that standpoint. We had one high reading of bacteria. Usually when you get one like that, you end up, it's a bad test. You go back, retest, and you find out that it's not a problem. So I want you to know that we've also been working with Rainer in the recreational department, and she has been fantastic. She is great to work with. So please relay that to her. Bryant Point Beach, we got a gate in. I don't know if you're all familiar with that, but the gate has reduced the noise and the bad behavior. I assume the police department is really happy with it because it's working extremely well. It shuts down basically at dusk and opens up again at 8 a.m. in the morning. The result of that is no real bad behavior down there. I tried to get a hold of the police today to find out if they had any numbers, but I wasn't able to. Water level, I have kept the lake higher than probably past years. I've kept it at full pond, and I've tried really hard to be there. Discussions with the company that does the weed treatment indicates that that is a very, very good method of mitigating some of the weed populations in the summertime. And in the wintertime, obviously, drawdown, which is the next subject. I will continue to draw the lake down. We get amazing kill rates if we can get a good freeze before snow. That's your four-letter word for us, too. So weed treatment, we did it. Lake Tiogue Association paid for the weed treatment. We treated Tiffany Cove in front of Bryant Point Beach and the cove in between Beach Street and Bryant Point. That was paid for entirely by the association, and with some help from grants from the House and the Senate, SERPA and Reptacus. Gatehouse, talking to Kevin over there, they're very close to getting a roof for the gatehouse. We need it. I'm so afraid that roof is going to cave in soon. I'm actually surprised it hasn't. If you don't get that roof fixed, it's going to cave in, it's going to break the gate, and then we're going to have a massive problem. You don't want that to occur. Hiring the divers a couple years ago was not a good situation. It was very expensive for the town. Simple maintenance will take care of that. Spillway, Kevin's crews have been out there to do a little bit better job on it. I want to see them continue to do that. I'd like to get them scheduled to go out there once a week. And to do that and to take out some of the debris that forms so the spillway works more correctly. I'd love it to be put on a schedule. And I'd love to have the contact person that would be working on it because, yeah, I would call him. Yeah. He probably wouldn't like me calling him, but I would do that. Spillway Bridge, real bone of contention. Crossing that spillway in the wintertime when the spillway's frozen, it's extremely dangerous. And I have to go over there and open up the gate. Nobody should be crossing that in the wintertime. I have to go over there. I don't have a choice. The lake level comes up, I gotta get over there and open up that gate. So I beg you to authorize that bridge. Unless it's already been authorized, then we're just waiting to construct it. A piece that you may not be familiar with, this year we had groundwater problems coming from on East Shore Drive. East Shore Drive comes off the hill off of Tiogue Avenue. That water level travels subsurfacely, and it ends up causing water in people's basements. Now, I know maybe you're thinking, well, having a basement on a lake maybe is not such a great idea, but these houses have been there forever. We think some of it is due to the catch basins not being maintained during the part of the summer. We also think there's been some development up on the hill that's resulted in more runoff coming down, and that runoff has increased, and we also had a very unusual spring with lots and lots of rain. So I'm not sure how we address that, but I would sure like some feedback on that. Sewer system. You have a lot of residents on that lake right now who are, should I put in a septic system? Should I wait? What should I do? Are we gonna get sewers? Are we not? Is it gonna happen this year? Is it gonna happen 5 years from now? 20 years from now? What should I do? I have been asked that so many times, as I'm sure you all have. But these are my friends. These are my neighbors. And I can't answer the question. I find it obnoxious that we went where we did and we're not going any further for whatever reason. A sewer system would help the quality, the water quality that we have in Lake Tiogue. It would absolutely be beneficial to the town's recreational values, and for it not to occur and just to sit there stagnant, it baffles me. I'm sorry, it baffles me. And I know you've got many points of view on that, but from an environmental standpoint, it is an easy call, an easy call. I wrote some closing remarks. That's really all I have. I wanted to make it quick. The Lake Association, the Tiogue Watershed Watch program, which is also funded by the town to do testing, and which is kind of nice. They do it through the University of Rhode Island. And we've worked a lot with DPW. And again, a real positive dialogue. It is very rare that I am not able to at least elicit a response. I may not always like the response, but I do get a response, and I do appreciate that. So, and I'll leave you with one last thing. And you're all invited, but you have to pay. We're having a steak fry at Club Jokes on September 5th. It's $25, and it's all to go to benefit the lake, for water, for weed abatement, like we did this year again, and all future years. Do you all have any questions for me?
Jerry, I just want to thank you for all the work the association and yourself put in to keeping that lake as beautiful as it is. And, once again, just appreciate the hard work you put in. Thank you for coming here tonight and giving us this report. Anybody else have any questions, any comments?
Jerry, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
As far as the sewers, I can tell you for everybody that lives on the lake that would like to see it, there is somebody else in town who hopes they never see it.
There is. I'm sure there
So,
is.
I would like to see it expanded around the lake. We have the line run up Arnold Road. I think it only stands to reason around the lake. But I think it behooves the council that before that decision is made, to come up with a better funding formula for the taxpayers who live over there. because the kind of sewer assessments that we were talking about in the past.
Yeah, they're obnoxious.
Right. They're completely unacceptable for the taxpayers in the town of Coventry.
Take somebody who has a $150,000 house and you tell them it's gonna cost them $35,000 to hook into city sewage, you're looking at 20% of the value of the house to hook
Right.
into city sewage? That's ridiculous.
Right.
I get it. I get it. I
So
understand.
we're between a rock and a hard place, but the work continues. We are continuing as a council. We have a sewer subcommittee that is continuing to come up with creative ideas to help with the funding formulas, to make it easier on the taxpayers and to expand the sewer system. Because we need to protect that body of water. It's the only one we have in town with a public beach that the taxpayers can actually use to recreate with their families. So we have to do something. And I echo what the president said. I know since Jeff's been gone, you have stepped in and you have taken over without question. You do a fine job over there. Listen, Jeff would be proud that you took his place. He really would. Yeah, right. And you know he's looking down. That's why the roof hasn't caved in on you yet. You know he's looking down. You know, so continue to fight the good fight, continue to do the good work, and, you know, as your rep, if there's anything I can do, you know, you call me and I try to get it done.
I know you do. I know you do, and I appreciate that. And I think all of you, you absolutely work hard. I mean, it's probably, most times it's a thankless job. You do a valuable service, and for a lot of people here, you know, they don't know how hard it is to sit where you are. And I appreciate that. I push the button of city sewage against the populist vote, I suppose. But sometimes there's a longer and a bigger picture. And yeah, you're right, you have to fix the funding formulas so that it's something that's achievable. So
And we actively are trying to come up with plans. It's just not a quick solution.
I would like, though, I would love you to say, Jerry, tell the residents on the lake, it won't be for 35 years. Because then they will go, and they will put in a septic system. Right now, they're sitting there, and they're leaking, and we're getting environmental problems associated with it. And they're like, well, I don't want to spend $15,000 or $20,000 on a septic system, because if I do, and next week they come in, I have to hook in. So it's you know, it would be really great if you all could project the future, so to speak, and say, yeah, Jerry, not at least 15 years. Okay, thank you. I will tell the residents that at my next meeting. You understand that, I'm sure. If you were in that situation and you were there, you would want the same exact thing. So I know that probably comes off kind of rude. I don't mean it to. But when you get hammered with these questions all the time, you would like to be able to give them a straight answer. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
You guys have a
Okay.
great evening.
Thank you, Jerry.
The next item on the agenda will be a District 1 update by Councilwoman Dickson, and it'll be on wind turbines in the cemetery.
Good evening, everyone. This summer has not been quiet for emails that I have been receiving. I'm going to just discuss two questions that I have been asked this summer. One has to do with cemeteries and one has to do with flicker from turbines. First of all the questions on cemeteries sent me to do a little research. I hadn't really thought too much about cemeteries, and I found out some fascinating information. There are 199 historic cemeteries in Coventry, with the oldest burial noted in 1771 in the Job Whaley lot on Whaley Hollow Road. This summer, I received 2 inquiries relating to cemeteries. One was from a gentleman who wanted to know if he could clean and maintain Cemetery 17, Whaley Havens Lot Cemetery near his home. The oldest grave there is 1816. So I contacted the chairperson for the Kent County Rhode Island Historic Cemeteries Commission, and she said no permission is needed or required to maintain a cemetery as long as the cemetery is not on a person's residential property. In that case, please contact the owner of that property. If there's any problem in maintaining a cemetery, then the chairperson, Ms. Margaret Malcolm, may be contacted. And I do encourage our residents to adopt a local cemetery. I didn't realize we had 199 so noted in the database. We have a lot of them, and many of them are in very poor condition. They're in disrepair, and no one is really paying much heed to them. And many of them are in very prominent locations on intersections of the roads that we travel on many times. So I would encourage you to think about what you might do to help. The second inquiry was from a gentleman who wanted to know why one of the historic cemeteries, Cemetery 12, Hopkins Hollow, near his home, had not been mowed by the town. The situation has been corrected, but I asked the question, why is the town mowing some cemeteries and not all? And I received this information. Decades ago, the town offered perpetual care to individual cemetery plot owners throughout the town. The plot owners would make a one-time payment to the town's cemetery fund that would assure the town or its designated contractors would cut and trim the designated plot periodically during the growing season. Hopkins Hollow Cemetery included scores of individual such plots which were identified by an identification marker. So in July 1995, the Hopkins Hollow Cemetery Association, who owned that particular cemetery, entered into an agreement with the town to provide perpetual care to the entire cemetery for a fee of $25,000 paid to the town's cemetery fund to be paid over a period of 5 years. That amount was paid off in 2000. That agreement called for the mowing of that cemetery 5 or 6 times per year. So I just want to note that if you do see some town workers doing some work in some of the cemeteries, it's probably because, or should be because, that association or request was made and payment was made into the cemetery fund for that work to be done by the town. So we have some historic cemeteries, 199 of them. Some of them have no one caring for them. No agreement was made with the town for cutting of the lawn. And so I would encourage you to adopt a local cemetery if you wish, or to just please note that we do have these agreements that are in effect, okay? The second item has to do with Flickr. Last month, I reported that a resident had recorded videos with his cell phone that he could start his recording, start and end times for Flickr in his house, and he recorded information on a log. Between July 4th and July 16th, he had recorded 38.7 hours of Flickr in the house. Our current ordinance restricts indoor Flickr to 30 hours per year. However, the town is still being challenged on its ordinance and questioned whether 30 hours relates to each individual turbine or the cumulative effect. So for the period March 1st, now extended out to August 12th, 44 hours of indoor Flickr have been so noted. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Dickson. The next item on the agenda is a finance report presented by Finance Director.
Good evening, Council. So I'm just going to try to go through this pretty quickly again, like always, and I'll try to answer as many questions as possible. And so now I have the agenda up, so we're just going to do a quick overview of our collections, revenues, final expenditure by department, and then summary and questions with some high-level items that are coming up this fiscal year. So these are unaudited figures that we got right now that I ran, so we can see it more on a cash basis. So numbers will move as we go through this audit process. As final things move back and forth, see where things actually should be, if things got missed throughout the course of the year. So this, again, is something that is, again, unaudited numbers. So again, this is a snapshot as of June 30th. So it's a snapshot in time at the end of the year. So just keep that in mind. And it gives you guidance for what happened. And you'll see as we go through, for example, overtime on snow removal. So this will actually help us understand for next year's budget process what the actual expenditures were, what they look like to budget. The first one I want to point out is the collections revenues to what was budgeted and what was actually collected. So fiscal year 19, we have the actual to date, which is as of June 30th. Remaining to budget, it comes in as a negative number because it's showing that it over accumulated revenue. So the total municipal revenue is 3.7%. I have a slide, the next one points out where most of that revenue came from, or the collections came from. So the total school department, now everyone's aware of what's gone on in the school department, so a little bit on that is, I've noticed that in the past years there's some reoccurring noise in that where some previous fiscal year comes into the other one. So Sarah and I are going to be talking more intently about that going forward. I've pointed it out to her, so we're jumping in on that. It's something that hasn't been looked at in the past, but it seems to be a reoccurring, exactly the same thing every single year. So it probably very well could be prior fiscal years, state aid coming in, that's captured in that year, booked in this year, and then at the end of the year, it gets cleared out in the audit. So that's that 6% that you're seeing there. So overall, 5.3% over. So I want to point out the actual collection to real estate taxes in particular. It's only 1.8% above, $335,000 above what was budgeted. You can't predict who's going to come in and pay their taxes on time, and coming in at just about that is actually really, really good. So I just wanted to point that out. So the other pieces that I broke out were other types of taxes came in. Auto excise tax, they changed it up a little bit with the state side where they sent out notices so people could log in immediately and see people hadn't paid, and would send out notices actually from the state rather than from Coventry. So I believe that attributed to a higher collection than what was budgeted there. Interest on investments, we did do well we have an investment account that has some of our money, and it generates a little bit more revenue than I would get in a money market account, but it's still safely invested. I also turned over some other investments. I doubled up some interest rates to be in CDs from 1.2% to 2.3%, so things like that. So those monies that you still see there, that is not increased risk, if you will. When I came in, that's just, we did well in the stock market and money is just still there. I just held the financial deposit institutions a little bit closer, feet to the fire, said I can get more money, so put my CD, get myself some rates off. So basically now we're moving into the expenditures by budget. Again, same format as last time. As you can see, so again, remember that these are two different budgets, have larger than others. So if you see something that is spent lower, let's say for example, town solicitor or Citizens Advisory Committee, which is gone, but town manager. Town manager, I know for a fact that we're paying him much less than you would have somebody there. So there'd be budgeted for a full-time person there, so that's why you're seeing a discrepancy, or I wouldn't say a discrepancy, but a difference in payment. We budgeted for someone coming in there at the beginning, so that's why that's down that far. Again, the same thing, all the numbers are pretty close. Board of Assessment Review, that is a small budget, so again, that's only, I have the statement of operations, but it's not very much in that. Again, we went pretty much straight up to the budgeted amount. Police, so you'll see here, I expanded this out so you can see that there was a little bit more of budgeted expenditures in the police civilians and police dispatch. Those were primarily in the overtime hours and things like that. But you see the reallocations throughout. We had a council meeting last time discussing that we had allocations that we could for the lease. So up at the very top, you'll see total budget of 100%. So the police department expended their total budgeted amount in that fiscal year. Public Works, very similar to that. I wanted to point out, I mentioned again, snow removal. When Kevin will attest to this, is that when roads need to be plowed, we budgeted $70,000 for it, but I looked back year over year, and out of the past 6 or 7 years, I want to say, we hit just under $70,000 once. We are consistently under budgeting that amount. But it's hours, you have to pay the employees, you have to have the roads plowed, so you have to pay that out. So we reallocate in order to pay that out. And so again, to the total budget, you're seeing 97% of total budget around in order to cover said costs. Planning and zoning, smaller budget. So again, the Historic District Commission, that's a very, very, very small budget. There's only a couple $100 in that, I believe, but that's why it's so low, but 95.82%. Public Library, 100%, Human Services, 93, and Recreation Department. Now, the Human Services, we're moving forward to the completion of the PD building, so that's going to be an unknown to say. So we'll be keeping an eye on all the expenditures going forward and seeing how that impacts the budget as far as the expenditures are concerned. Our audit has begun. We're already working into that. We've already produced a bunch of documents to them. We have scheduled them coming in. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of reviews. So they will be spending a lot of time with us. So we are working towards that. On the good news, we are looking actually finishing on time this year. We're working desperately to get that to happen for the first time in 4 years. 4 years. Set up a lot of automated pieces on the back end to get the working with the state side so that what held up the audits in the previous years won't happen again. So I'm really pushing them, and as other people in this town that are auditors know, I understand what they're looking for and ready to go. So working desperately towards that. Upload documents. I pushed up online, if anybody would like to take a look, the debt service book for fiscal year 20 onto my webpage on the treasurer side. So you can see the debt service for all the towns, so you can see it all, as well as the debt affordability study. That debt affordability study is done by the state of Rhode Island. Take a look at section 3. That pertains specifically to the towns. The reason why I wanted that up there is that, yes, ratios and numbers and comparisons, when we're on our own little bubble, we only can see inside of our walls. But then the state of Rhode Island can actually paint a bigger picture. You can actually see where we stand with other towns when it comes to their debt service and things of that nature. So you can actually see us compared with Cumberland and Johnston and everyone around and see the same ratios. Yes, every single there's no perfect correlation, but at least it is a good tool. So large projects for 20, I already talked about the PD complex. So the sewer enterprise rate study, that is ongoing as well. So not only are we uploading documents for the audit, we are constantly uploading documents for the rate study. I've uploaded everything. We've given them the auditor general's report. They're looking at that intently, and he's coming in a couple weeks as well to sit one-on-one with me and ask detailed questions. I made sure that when we did this, that a preliminary report will be done by 10/31, and that a presentation will be done by the end of the year. Now, you'll have the report, but the actual presentation, they will be coming in, presenting on their findings, and it will be this year. So as we step into the next calendar year, we'll have a rate study done. I've checked the sewers, the meters going into West Warwick to make sure that those flows are correct. We've got the audit and everything like that. So we're moving towards in the right direction here. Something that is coming up, which is very important, is that we're working with a financial system that has been in place since the end of the 90s. I believe it was installed in 98. And the provider is sunsetting that service, and it will end by the end of this fiscal year. So we have no choice, again, to go into a new financial system, so that's what we're looking out at. I put a request for information out. Rather than an RFP and going straight out and doing that first, I put a request for information. I want as much information of possible vendors out there to see what works best for Coventry before I move on with the RFP. We're looking at doing the overlap beginning of next year, and so that way it'll be in place. And it's going to be full financial. It's going to be treasurer, human resources, and it'll work with the school as well. So I've been working with Sarah with the verbiage on the RFI, so everything will tie together and we can move the town system into a more efficient system. And that should be it. And after all, at the end of the day, everything's adequate. Everything looks acceptable for the last fiscal year's budget. Again, these are all pre-audit. Any questions?
John, thank you for that report.
Very welcome.
Anybody have any questions? Yes.
I do. Just going back Under Town Hall, Human Relations, that was an increase. Do you know why?
Town Hall Human Resources or
It says
Human Relations?
relations.
It's up to 100% of the budget.
Okay. And we had an increase in Public Works and Engineering and refuse disposal also?
Yes, so the refuse disposal piece, again, is time for employee wages as well. And there was a reallocation in that I actually highlighted this year. I just took a look at what was budgeted to what expended, and so that next year I'll know exactly what that should be budgeted for. And so it was a transfer between those two. So it will
Transfer
wash
between-
out, it'll wash to pay for the snow removal. It just hit that account rather than the other one, but.
I'm sorry, which account are we talking
So
about?
snow removal again was
Yes. And
too
you took it
much.
out of which
I took
account?
it out of that account. It
Which
should have
account?
hit
Refuse
the
disposal?
the refuse
Okay,
disposal.
I just wanted to make sure that's what we were talking about.
It should have hit a different account, the one that actually I would have done inspections and permits. It would have been a much smarter move, but at
Okay.
the end, it's 97%.
Okay, and how about the engineering?
Engineering costs,
Yeah,
99% of the budget.
okay. It was just more of an increase since last year, so I was just wondering. Okay, contingency fund. How much do we have in that? You know, I always ask every time you come.
I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't looked at that account specifically thinking to do that. The contingency account, the only thing that was hit for that was the tax assessor's one. So if there was about, again, this is just off the top of my head, so it should be somewhere around the, I don't want to throw out a number.
Okay,
I don't feel comfortable saying a number without having it in front of me.
okay.
Would you know off?
They're not paying attention. The surplus sale that we just had in town.
Yes. I
What-
took a look at the surplus sale when it came to the insurance savings on that alone. I remember doing that we're saving alone on insurance on that, just under $10,000 a year. Somewhere in the ballpark is 9,700.
No, the surplus sale when we sold off the equipment on the government websites, how much did we bring in?
I'd have to ask Kevin on that one. I don't know that. I was looking more or less on what we're saving year over year, because we do sell things over time, obviously, but I just.
Yeah, I
looking
was
more
just
so on
wondering
that.
how much we brought in. I would assume that would go into the general fund?
Correct.
Okay, so I was just wondering how much that. Also, last week when we had the issue on the roof with the AC unit.
Correct, yep.
Okay, how much did that cost to repair, and where is that cost coming from?
We do not have a final cost on that at this point.
He's-
And it would be coming out of, at this point, Kevin, but
Fixed repairing equipment.
on the building.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and then I know we are discussing later on in the evening, but the Waterman Fisk Fund. I did discuss this with Ed, that we really need to have a very detailed report. It has been close to 5 years since the town council has had a very detailed report.
Okay.
So I know are you going to be here for that conversation?
I will be here for that
Okay,
conversation.
good, I'll reserve all my.
I brought along with me for that conversation some more information.
Yeah, I have
to-
my audit book also, but I do have a handout, 18 pages that I put together regarding that fund, so.
This is the actual trust fund.
Beautiful.
And the trust, the returns on investment over since inception with GYL, what's in there right now, the valuation of it, and I also brought a printout of another account too.
Okay, I'll save all my questions for later, but could I just ask that when we do get this, could we have the contingency fund put in this this?
Contingency fund put in, just one line item.
Yeah, I would like to know what we have and what's being paid out of the contingency fund.
Okay. Would you like a sort of an attachment at the end just to show what's been expended?
Or, because it is just, you're giving us a financial update. And one other thing that folks have asked, and I've never been able to answer this question. Apparently there are town-issued credit cards. I don't know who has the credit cards. Is there any type of an accounting that we see who has authorization when they're in a printout of who's spending money?
So there's credit cards and then there's a debit card. We have the
Okay.
town debit card, which hits the general fund immediately. Directors have ability to or have the ability to use that. I balk at the fact of using that. I don't want that compromised. Obviously, if that gets compromised, someone has access to the general fund. So I hate using that. The credit card, there are some, for example, Home Depot. I know who has Home Depot credit cards. There's, Kevin also has one for the tractor as well. So the department heads do have track of who has credit cards. I don't have that list off the top of my head.
Okay, could we have a good idea on who has credit
I
cards,
do
where we
have-
do?
know who they
I just
are,
found
and I
that
see-
interesting.
I do find that interesting too. I've actually started writing a credit card policy on this and debit card policy. The way that I want to go is with this financial system. I want a whole new implementation of it. And what I personally would like to do is something that is it makes a lot more sense and it's a lot easier to manage and report on. So that's where I'm looking towards. I'm looking to that. I'm looking for getting that fiscal piece put in, that treasury, that whole package put in place.
Yeah.
And then I can build that on.
Yeah, could we include that, if they're a credit card, and I didn't know that they're, because you said they're to Home Depot and Tractor Supply, so you have individual credit cards to different stores also?
Correct. Because what happens is if you have a credit card, right, and you have a credit card and you can purchase off of that, you sometimes can get a discount off of it. So that's why if you're going to a specific location, it makes it a lot quicker. And again, I don't want to use the debit card out and about all the time because access to the fund.
Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Ms. Darnett, how much is in this perpetual care cemetery fund that I've been talking about?
Just over 60,000. I want to say it's 60,800, something like that.
60,800?
Correct.
And is that fund a line item, and where would I find that?
Cemetery fund is a capital. I believe it's a capital fund. It's a special fund off to the side. I wish Lori was here. She would be able to tell me the fund number right off the top of her head. But it's on the back. So if you look in the financial statements, you'll see a cemetery fund line item, which will tell you expenditures that happen according to that too. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
So I can print that out at any time. I get quarterly reports on that as well, and that needs to last forever on it.
Yeah, it's supposed to last forever,
Yeah.
perpetual.
Yeah, 64,000, and then the maintenance for 1 year. Yeah,
So you said the number is 60,000?
just over 60,000. Yes.
Okay.
And I sent you the exact number today in an email. You should have it.
My email service is not working. I have a note to talk to you at the end of since you're an IT guy, to help me out.
I believe it's
okay?
about 60,800 from what I remember.
Thank you, thank you very much. It's always helpful to have that.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there are no other questions, Madam Clerk, I'm sorry I'm taking your job, but if you would read B8, please.
Town manager,
Are you looking at last
Excuse
fiscal
me.
year?
Excuse me. I asked if there was any more questions.
I know, I was looking at something in the book and trying to get clarification from,
Oh, I see.
Councilman
So
Bacon.
You have a question?
yes.
Okay. Excuse
On,
me, Madam Clerk.
You said the cemetery fund balance was
60,800
60,000.
from off the top of my head. And if you're looking at last fiscal year's audit, that would be prior to the evaluation of it.
Right, well, this says 60,991 as of June 30th, 2018.
Mhm.
But then on the following page, it says fund balance June 30th, 2018 for the cemetery fund under line item 602 is $29,009. Deficit.
That doesn't make any sense to me. So the cemetery fund is held with Alliance Bank, and it's invested as well in sort of the same kind of trustee type as the other types of trusts that we have. So those funds are just sitting there, and the money gets reinvested right back into it. And I know that I haven't authorized anything for the cemetery from this past year. So,
May I?
yes, please.
If, I think we can give Mr. Arnett a chance to investigate that and get clarification. He could probably
I will look
email
into
you
that,
and
definitely.
check into that for us. Probably
Yeah.
tonight's not the best, no. If we
It's a
could-
very, very good question. I will
certainly,
definitely
it's
look
a good question. Yeah, maybe we could get clarification on that and send that out.
Move forward.
All right, does anybody else have any questions so we can move forward? All right, then Madam Clerk, if you would.
Town manager presents letter regarding a proposal for zoning change to Plat 59, Lot 13 at Old Flat River Middle School.
Mr. Manager, you want to give us an explanation, please?
Yes, sir. John, could you put up that slide, please? It will be page 39. Thank you. We were approached by the school department in reference to the need for a propane tank for filling up the new propane buses. And during a review of finding out where we could put that, because the original thought was over at the former middle school, over at the annex. When I began doing the research on that, I found out that the zoning for that building is RR2. RR2 does not allow for that type. Now, doing further research, I realized that RR2 also does not allow for school buses
To be parked.
on that site. So this was something that was done 2 years ago. They were moved over there from Wood Street when they closed the Wood Street facility. I met with our council. Both councilors agree that there is an issue, so I'm proposing that we begin the process of rezoning that piece. You'll look, there's a map, and there's a map attached in your packet, to bring that in compliance with the buses there, which we need to make that an I-1 zoning designation. And I-1 zoning allows for school buses to be parked on the property. So again, this will be up to planning and zoning and to the council, but I'm making the request that we begin the process.
So there's no vote necessary on this tonight?
So we
Just,
simply
you're
move
just,
this to planning and zoning is,
yeah, moving this to planning, so we're just making us aware
but
of
I
it.
just want you to be aware of where we are, what's going on, and to start the official process.
Okay, great. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I do have a couple of questions about this. I understand moving it to I-1, because if you look under I-1, that is what's permitted for the school buses. However, there are things that do take place in that building, with the rec, with the basketball court, that I do not believe would be permitted under I-1. Also, the dimensions for I-1, do they have the setbacks for that, given the residential homes over there?
Again, that will all be looked at in the full process. I've not, that's planning and zoning. I'm just making, at this point, moving forward, if we.
But we are just saying, but we're moving forward with residential, from RR2 to an I-1 industrial. So I just want to make sure that this is appropriate. We do have other businesses that, not businesses, but other activities that go on there, and we need to do this appropriately.
I agree.
Second
That's
of all,
that's why it would be passed to the planning and zoning for them to do
I-
all that work involving it, because that's not my area.
I do have a concern also. I know we want to go and put that there, but would we be able to say if this does go forward, these folks purchased their homes, it was RR2, there was a school right there. Now if this goes forward, I-1, can we do it as long as the town of Coventry owns that piece of property? If we were to ever sell that piece of property, would it revert back to RR2? Could we put that somewhere in there?
That
Again,
would be a question for our attorney.
and that would be discussed with the planning and zoning. I think it's, he's just actually now just requesting to send the letter out to him. Let it go
Oh,
through the
I
whole thing.
I understand, but I do have a lot of concerns, and these school buses were put there. These folks never did have a public hearing. They now will have the opportunity to have a public
We will have a
hearing
public hearing and planning
and
and
discuss
zoning.
that. And this all was based on the fact that the school department wants to put in a 3,000-gallon propane tank back there.
Excuse me, that was the original question that was proposed.
Yes.
That's not what I'm doing or why I'm
That's not
doing
why
what I'm
we,
doing.
the town, are doing this, exactly. But
This is two separate issues, and that is something that would have to go on after the fact. This is to put
Exactly.
us in compliance with a violation that's been going on for 2 years that was moved.
I went back, I tried to do the research on how it got done, who did it, where it came from. I never found anything on this going in front of the council. My understanding and everything I've reviewed and things that we've pulled up, this was done by our former town manager to make this move, to bring it over there without checking for the zoning issues. So I am just trying to simply bring this in compliance, so that piece of property is in compliance with zoning, and what's necessary for the buses to be there.
Exactly, but it was reported at the school committee meeting on Thursday night that this is the reason why the council here, we here tonight are doing this for a propane tank, a 3,000 gallon propane tank.
I can't comment on what
I know, I'm
someone
just
else
telling
says,
you that
Mrs. Bacon.
that was the,
It's not what I'm
Craig
doing. I'm
Levis, I
doing
know.
here to put this because we need to make a change.
but I
What-
just wanted clarification, that's all. And if these folks that do live over there, they would, if this goes forward, planning and zoning, they would be notified for
Under a normal process of, yes,
Okay,
the
I
whole
just
normal
wanna make
process
sure.
of what goes on.
Thank
Yes.
you, thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. And Mr. Lavassi, you have a comment?
Actually, I've got a question for Mr. Crossman, if, at least an opinion on that. Would that require a zoning change or a non-conforming use might be
The buses
sufficient?
are allowed by right. They're permitted in an I-1 zone, okay? But the propane gas is only allowed in an I-1 zone by special use permit. So they would have to come after, if the zone change was granted, they'd then have to go before the zoning board for a special use permit to put these propane tanks back there.
But it wouldn't be possible just to leave it R2 with a non-conforming use?
No,
or-
because if you go to table on page 6-10 of the zoning ordinance, if you look up, it specifically references school bus parking and storage. And if you go to the RR2 zone, it is an N, which means no. So you don't even have the ability to ask for a special use permit before the zoning board. But if you bump over to I-1, it's permitted.
Okay.
So that's.
Okay, but in doing something, of course, we've talked about like spot zoning before. This
Well,
would
see,
not
I don't
quite
really
meet that
consider this
criteria.
spot zoning, because if you look at all the purple across the street,
Yeah.
that's all I-1.
It's a continuation, in essence, we're just crossing across. Okay.
Right.
Great,
Okay.
thank
Any
you.
more questions?
Yes,
Sure.
3,000 gallon propane tank. What's the proximity to residential homes? And what are the safety concerns?
Well, if I may, that's not what's being discussed this evening. It's just forwarding a letter. This is gonna be a completely different topic at a future date when it goes in front of planning. So
Okay.
it's really not, this is not the reason why we are presenting this evening. So it wouldn't be fair to talk about it now. We're just asking to bring it to planning and zoning.
The propane tank was only the reason I started doing the research. It is not, it's nothing to do with this. I'm not making this change so we can put that there. I'm making this change to put us in compliance only. And then after that point, if somebody wants to move forward on that, that's different. But this is to fix the issue that we currently have, which is we're not in compliance with our own zoning.
Right, because this has nothing to do with the propane tank.
No, it does not.
This is a change in zoning, and then it would be up to the
School
school
department,
committee or the bus company to come for a special use permit before planning and zoning
correct,
for the propane tank.
correct.
And if the school committee mentioned anything about this was the reason for it, they were never. That's just the way it is. We were just simply trying to get in conforming to the school buses being parked there.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so when this goes forward, though, can we just make sure that we have all the uses prior to this being sent over to planning? I mean, I just want to make sure because, we do have, the basketball over there, and I don't know if this goes under 5.
Sure, I think,
Because it's under I-1, it's not permitted. So indoor, outdoor, profit, nonprofit, recreation. I just want to make sure that since we do have a basketball league there, that all of a sudden now, if we.
because we change it to I-1, it's no
exactly.
longer allowed,
Yeah,
but school buses are.
yeah.
I get it.
I just
And,
want to make sure we know everything that's going on in that building, and we go through these tables and make sure that we check everything off, because all of a
Well, I
sudden,
think I'm going to confirm with the solicitor's office, but there is one other option. I mean, we could always convert, instead of going I-1, we could go to a PUD, where we could create a plan unit development for the parcel, and that way we could dictate what the use was that would be allowed in that zone.
that was my next question.
All right, so,
I don't know, I mean, it's a discussion for
Because
Nick and I to have, but I think it's a possibility.
we have a lot going on in that.
To just address the concern raised about what would happen if there are uses there now that are not specifically allowed in an I-1, so thus just assuming if it were changed to I-1, what, for example, would happen with the basketball league that is there now? They would not have to leave because they're there now. So it would be a legal non-conforming use in the I-1 zone. Whenever you change a zone, the uses that are allowed there are typically allowed to continue because they were there. So I wouldn't worry about it.
I just wanted to make sure. I
Yeah,
mean, we have the
that's a good
school and
concern,
everything,
good
so I just wanted to
basketball.
make sure that we are covering all of our bases. That's
Sure.
all right, so what we're doing now is we're just giving the,
Talking basketball.
we're just giving the town manager permission to bring it up to the planning commission, and then at the public hearing in the planning commission, a lot of questions will be asked and answered at that time.
Yeah,
And
I'm
you'll
not
confer
sure that
with-
it's a public hearing, but it would come before the planning commission and for a recommendation back to you folks.
And you'll have further discussion with our solicitor.
Absolutely.
Possible changes or whatever. This is just the beginning of the process. That's all.
Correct.
Just making us aware. Okay, fine.
There's a great deal of public notice required for any amendment to the zoning ordinance, which
Okay.
will be forthcoming.
Right, I just wasn't sure if the planning was I know there would be a public hearing at the council stage, I just wasn't sure if there'd be one at the planning stage.
It has to be studied by the planning commission.
I understand
So, yeah.
that, correct.
So I guess that would be a public, it seems like that's a public hearing.
I will look into that and we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, item C1, please.
Ratification and approval of separation agreement for former Director of Planning and Development.
Okay, we did have a matter in executive session, so we will, just looking for,
Vote?
yes, we're gonna make a motion. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. President, I make a motion to ratify and approve the separation and mutual agreement between the former Director of Planning and Development and the Town of Coventry.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, Madam Clerk, C2, please.
Amendment to Chapter 191 Sewers, Section 14, Assessment, Subsection H of the Coventry Code of Ordinances.
Mr. Manager, or Mr. Solicitor, one of you is prepared to give
I'm
us?
gonna let you take this one, Nick.
Okay, all right.
If you remember last time we were here, when we had the public hearing on this amendment to the ordinance, you asked me to make it clearer. I think I've achieved that goal, but of course you are the final arbiters. So if you've had a chance to review it and have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But I do think it's an improvement over what we had at the first public hearing.
I did have a chance to read it, I'm sure as we all did. Are there any questions from anybody from the council? Yes.
I do have a question. Later in the evening, we're going to be discussing the Waterman Fisk Fund, using that possibly as to help with sewer assessments. How would that, if that is voted on and approved, how would that impact this? If this was approved?
It wouldn't really have any impact on this. I can't think of any.
Okay, so I'm actually, instead of us voting on this tonight, I would like to entertain that we table this, and I know, you're looking at me like I have 5 heads, but I would like to table this and any of the other sewer conversations and have a work session with the sewer subcommittee and all the parties involved discussing how this came about. We have the sewer rate study, Someone has now proposed, dipping into the Waterman Fisk Fund. We have all of these ideas, and we seem to be piecemealing together our sewer program. Don't you think it would be beneficial as the town council, as the sewer authority, that we sit down and we have a work session with all the parties involved so we can discuss this? Because we are just piecemealing everything together. We're doing this, we don't have the sewer rate study. I know you're looking baffled at me, but that's because obviously I'm not involved in all these conversations and all of this is happening. Is there any rush for us to get this done, or could we wait until we have a?
Well, let me comment on that, because you're using the word piecemeal, and I don't think it's piecemeal. I think it's making steps to make the sewer program, more beneficial and helping everybody in the sewer program. So I wouldn't call it piecemealing. And the sewer subcommittee is just there to do any task that we set, we ask them to do. So, they don't make the rules, we do. And I think that the solicitors worked hard on trying to get this. This has been something that we've been wanting to do for a long time, so by no means do I think we're rushing into lowering this interest rates. And we discussed it last meeting.
But we have the state has already taken that step, correct? So, the state's already done it, so there's no rush.
So what's the problem with, we do, if you can say the state's already
But
done
what
it,
I'm
we
saying,
didn't want
what-
to do this.
Match it up.
Yeah, we're just matching pretty much
Yeah,
what the
this
states
is-
are doing. However, I really don't call it piecemealing. Certainly we could have a conversation with them, but the sewer subcommittee is just there to do different tasks that we set them out to do. And like I said, I think this is way overdue. This particular item that we're up to tonight is way overdue. We've had this solicitor look at it. I think he did a good job on rewording it. And, you can make a motion, but I think that we're ready for this. I really do. If you want to make a motion, you can.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Gorham, for revising this ordinance, and you did fulfill our desires and our request to you at our last meeting, so thank you very much. Several months ago, I did ask the council to put a stake in the ground to vote whether they were going to reinitiate or initiate the sewer program. And there was a general consensus that we should do that. And there are still people who don't think we should go forward, or we should go forward, et cetera. And I think a good first step is for the town to put this stake in the ground and determine that it wants to move forward with the program. I believe that Councilperson's Bacon's suggestion that we have a gathering of minds and that we look at the entire plan. Where are we going? What are we doing? What are all the pieces that we need? What's the timeline for these pieces? What are the action steps that need to be done? Who's responsible? We do not have this plan going forward. I know that there are pieces that are in place, such as the rate study. We did vote on that. And I think that in the minds of probably everyone on this council, there's an idea of what needs to be done. I have no clue as to what needs to be done, in what order, how much it will cost, what kind of ordinances we have to fix, what we have to do next, and I haven't seen the big picture. So what we're seeing in the agenda items are good faith items, like we need to fix this, we need to fix that, we need to do this, but I don't see the big picture and I don't understand how it all fits together. So I do believe that this ordinance has been revised based on what we have suggested, and I think this is okay because it does talk about interest rates charged. But the other pieces about this program, we first need to make, as I said, a stake in the ground. Are we going to continue with the sewer program or not?
Well,
And that's number one. And I know the feeling of many people that we should, but I think officially we need to vote on that. And then I do think that it would be good to have a meeting in which we look at what are all the things that have to be done, in what order, and so on and so forth, which I just mentioned.
I am not opposed to having a meeting and discuss this, but the item at hand is what we're discussing, which is item C2 on the agenda about matching the state's requirement. We fulfill the requirements of the solicitor field. That is the particular item at hand. So I'm fine if we want to set up a meeting in the future and discuss the broader picture. But right now, this is the item at hand that I'd like to discuss. So the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion, and after that motion is voted on, I'd like to make a second motion, please.
If it's on the agenda item, you can, but if
It
it's-
is on the
all right,
agenda
all
item.
right. So the
I
chair
would
will-
like to make a motion that we pass this ordinance change to bring us into conformity with what the legislature has already passed on behalf of the taxpayers in the town of Coventry, and to pass this ordinance change to bring the interest rate down to 0.5, no greater than 0.5 of the weighted rolling average annual interest that is on the town for administering these loans.
0.5 above the weighted rolling.
Right,
average
that's what I,
cost.
right.
Based on this.
That's what I said with the annual weighted, just as the ordinance reads.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a second. All in favor?
Now there can be discussion.
Okay,
After
some
a
more
second.
discussion? Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I know we did discuss at the last meeting about the 20 years going to 30 years.
No. I questioned that, and
Okay.
our finance director almost passed out.
Well, the finance director, it doesn't matter if he wants to pass out. This is for the taxpayers. I mean, so that's, so the 30 years,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, can we change it to 30 years?
Well, you could make it, Councilperson Bacon, you could make an amendment to this motion to change the 20 years to 30 years, in which case we would vote on that, and then we would vote on the revised motion. So if you want to make an amendment to the motion that Mr. Cody made, then that's fine.
Well, yeah. First of all, I'd like to talk to the finance director to find out the impact. I mean, we're not finance people, and I want to find out, because I remember something vaguely we mentioned about it, but I want to find out the positive and the negative impact of this.
To be complete, again, I'm not even sure how we would be able to do that in the system first and foremost. I know that 20 years is able to be done in the system. I'm not sure about anything greater than that when it comes to the assessments, and then how that even works. So that's first and foremost. I don't know how that would even work. Again, it's dated, it's old, I'm not sure. So to put that into place now, at that point, it doesn't make sense. Another thing that the 20 years coincides with a lot of other types of financing that is done. We do financing in 20-year periods in the past as well. It's keeping things very similar to what has happened and very in par. To go out and think what rates will be in the future and do a rolling average in the future as well over a 30-year period, I don't know. Again, it's not as simple as you could do that, sure, but
Can I try to put this in terms I think everybody
Again.
sitting here can understand?
Yeah.
We're borrowing the money to finance these impact fees for the taxpayers on a 20-year note,
correct.
and allowing the taxpayer to pay it back on a 30-year note, which means the financial impact after 20 years is going to be felt by our general fund making those payments
Yeah.
in excess of what, because we've got to pay the bond off in 20 years.
Yes. And another
But
way
the
that-
taxpayer don't have to pay it off until 30 years, which means for 10 years, the responsibility goes on our general fund.
I think the fact that we're borrowing the money at 20 years, and in fact, the solicitor is checking to see, because maybe the state,
There's-
I think they 20 years is the way the state right there. Am I correct in
There's
that?
also another piece when they do bonding and coupons are on, the way that it just works, you just pay it by those future years. So we're paying those in 20-year intervals. So similar, yes.
This would have an extreme adverse effect on our bonding when we go in there, because we're extending
Yeah.
this out. We're not collecting annually enough to make our payments.
Yeah.
This would be, I mean, if we were borrowing at 30 years, then paying off at 30 years is
But we're
doable.
borrowing at 20.
Again.
and
Yeah, I
paying
mean,
off
we'd have to
at
run the
30.
numbers to give you exact what the effect would be.
Well, I think personally that the 20 years is in line with everything else. We have a motion right now, and did we get a second? We got a
I
second.
second it.
On a 20 years. I think that's more than fair. If we find out that bonding can be changed, we always could be changed in the future, but we're borrowing at 20 years, and
Could we look into this could we look into it and then just table this and I would feel more comfortable?
You could always make an amendment to this after we do research on this, to see about the 20 versus 30. I mean,
but-
off the top of my head, it is going to be expensive. It's going to be extremely expensive.
Could we look at 25 and 30?
Listen,
Could
we have a motion. I think it's 20 years, like the town manager said, if we decide that after some more investigation from the finance director, that it warrants another change, we can change it. But I think it warrants making it 20 years. It's gonna coincide with the state legislation. I think it's time that we vote on this. So we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Aye. Okay, motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Resolution authorizing the town manager to allow the supervision and oversee the reconstruction of a portion of the town-owned greenway buffer near Boston Scientific 8 Industrial Drive.
All right, Mr. Manager, you want to give an explanation on that, please?
Certainly. John, would you put up slide number 49, please? This, Thank you. Actually, any of them will work. Boston Scientific contacted, wow, brain fart right now, sorry. Our planning department in reference to, while doing some construction work over there and making some changes to their loading dock, they realized that they had encroached upon several feet of town land several years ago. And in an attempt to bring this land back into its original condition, they found out because of wetlands nearby, they actually need a DEM authorization to do it, and they also need the town to sign off on authorizing to do it. So what this is we're getting our land back, they're gonna remediate it, they're gonna take out the asphalt, take out a fence, take out a guardrail, and plant grass and wildflowers and turn it back to its original condition. So this is simply authorizing me to be able to sign off on the DEM, as well as make sure that they comply with what I've listed in the packet, all of the things that they will be doing. I've also given you several photos of what's happening.
And the solicitors had a chance to look at this, and you're fine with it?
Yes.
Okay, are there any questions from anybody from the council?
I just have one quick question. How long will this take to complete this project?
I didn't get a dateline.
They didn't give us a dateline either, but they're ready to start yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're ready.
They ripped that asphalt out, and
They've been
it's
ready.
not a big job,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah,
okay,
they've been
so
ready.
the chair will entertain a motion for approval, or for a motion for
Passage.
passage. I'm looking at, all right, yes, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, item C4, please.
Resolution authorizing the town manager to execute reconfigure easement for underground sewer line located at Plat 32, Lot 141, AKA the Crossroads Housing Development.
Okay, who would like to give the explanation on that?
I would love to. This is the night of fix problems. This is.
Not defining them.
We never used this easement when it was the green property.
No, well, the easement was given. Town accepted it for the sewer line in that property. Sewer line didn't go in at that point. Building went in at that point. Building went over the easement. Sewer line went in. Sewer line went in front of the building where there was no easement. This came up when they were doing some title work on it. So now this is simply to bring it back into compliance, terminate the original easement and accept the new easement in the proper area where this line is actually situated on the
The
property.
line's already in, the building's already up.
Yep, it's all done, it's in, it's just, again, this is fix the problem night.
No negative effect on this, it's already there. So
Nope.
all right, is there any questions for anybody from the council?
Just angling it off.
I don't have a question. Actually, it's Nick. Just to be consistent throughout the document, on page 51 of 129, the last whereas.
Yes.
Okay, it says Coventry, a 20 feet wide. We use 20 foot wide throughout the document. Can we just be consistent?
I did not draw this document.
This was done by the
Council for the Housing
Housing
Authority,
Authority.
Mr. Capaldi.
okay.
So,
Did-
what page was it?
That is page 51 of 129.
Second line from the bottom.
Yes, I think that should be corrected. I agree
Okay,
with you.
thank you. So I guess you did not also draw on page 55 of 129? No, all men buy these presents? Starting off that document?
It was done by a different attorney.
I did
Okay,
not do
thank you.
that.
I'm glad it wasn't ours.
No, it was not.
Okay, so we will make sure that those items are corrected, and so the chair will entertain a motion if there's no other discussion.
Corrections
Okay,
for approval.
we have a motion with the corrections noted.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, Madam Clerk, the next one would be D1, please.
Application by John Studley for fireworks at 47 Indian Trail on September 1st at 8:30 p.m. The rain date has changed to September 8th. He came in today.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
This is kind of an annual thing for Mr. Studley. He comes in every year.
Yep.
I don't remember ever having complaints about it in the past.
I think it's a good thing for the.
Yeah, it's a good thing for the people on the pond, and anybody could happen to get a spot on a public road and be able to see them. Pretty good display.
And there's no concerns with the fire marshal, so the chair will entertain a motion.
I have a.
Indian Trails,
well, we'll
Indian
make a
Trails are
motion
public
and
road
then
if you can
go-
get down
I'll
there.
ask a
Okay, the
question.
chair will entertain a motion.
Motion.
We have a motion, we have a second, Any discussion?
I have a discussion. Many times we're receiving applications to extend hours or ask for this or that. These forms all need to be revised. They don't talk about starting time, ending time, dates are not correct. Most of the forms don't even have a place for a date to be listed or a rain date to be listed. And I'm going to appeal again that we review the forms that we are giving to the public in which they are requesting something from the council, and that these forms be complete as to the information that we require. Sometimes we're asked to extend hours, and we never even know whether this is gonna go to 3 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning. We have no ideas whatsoever. So please look at all the forms.
Mr. Andrew, you take care
Well, I
of
think
that
we
with
do in
the
this
forms?
case because we have a noise ordinance after a certain time, so.
Not
Without
enough,
special
yeah.
dispensation, I would say he's gotta be done by a certain time.
Okay,
I would like to recruit Mrs. Dickson to help the manager draft that form.
There are many forms, and I'm happy to lend my assistance at any time.
I will give
I
you
also
a
would
stack
like
of
to-
forms, ma'am.
At any
I will
time.
give you a stack.
I knew that.
Give me a couple of days, I'll have them for you.
Tonight I'm using a purple pen, but I will bring my red one next
Oh,
time.
not the red pen.
okay, now we,
Carrie,
Bacon,
do you mind? Yes. This, when it was filed, there was no date, and was the license fee paid? Because there's no indication on the application.
He pays for the license when he picks it up.
Okay. Also, I just have a question. In previous years, there was always, I noted that there was police detail. This one does not. Is he required to have a police detail or no? Because in previous years, it was, when it was approved.
I believe typically a police detail is up to the police department. It's in the
Okay.
discretion of the chief, so
Okay,
this is done in his private residence, am I correct?
I don't
He
know.
does
I mean,
have to
I'm a,
off of his property.
I
Yeah,
just
off
know
the
that
point.
the details are in the discretion of the chief,
okay.
the colonel.
Because, yeah, in the past, it was approved, but with a police detail, so that's why I was just
I
asking.
always thought it was these.
Yeah, no, I pulled it because
Okay.
Usually they do have, there's the fire department personnel who are on site.
Okay.
usually, with the fire
Okay,
marshal
and we get the
everything.
fire marshal approval, and that'll be all set. I do have, I don't know if anyone can answer, because a couple of folks had asked me, what's the length of this? Is it like the 4th of July, about 45 minutes? Does anyone know?
I've seen it in the past, I don't think it's lasted that quite that
No,
long.
I was gonna say
It's probably
probably,
20 minutes to a half hour.
20 minutes to a half hour?
yeah.
Okay.
It
No,
never goes as long as the 4th of July one.
okay, all right.
Okay, so.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? We have a motion, we have a second. Well, you have another question, do you?
No, I do
Okay, I
not.
figured.
Lucky
Okay,
you.
yeah, lucky me. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Madam Clerk, item D2, please.
Application for Class F liquor license by St. John and Paul Parish Corp., 341 South Main Street, comedy fundraiser to benefit Knights of Columbus, 9/6/19 at 7 p.m.
Okay, we've had a chance to look at that. There is contingent upon police and zoning approval. Is that meaning that they have not approved it yet, Madam Clerk, or have they?
No, they have not yet.
Okay, so everything will be contingent.
Correct.
Anybody have any questions? No, I mean, we'll be looking for.
Is there a fee associated with this?
There is a $15 per day license fee. So,
Request that we waive the fee.
Make a mo-
all right, well, let's
we
make a
include
motion
that
and then
in
we can,
the motion?
we are still looking for a motion to approve.
I would like to make a motion to approve, contingent on the specifications set forth. The, waiting on approval from zoning and
Okay.
nonprofit paperwork hasn't been submitted yet, but I would like to make a
Want to
motion.
include the waiver of
I
the
want to
fee?
make a motion for that and to include the waiver of the $15
That'll be
fee.
acceptable. We can do both of them. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
We have a second.
Have a
All in
second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, motion carries.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would just mention again that this form is very incomplete. On one form.
I'll have a copy for you tomorrow, Mrs. Dickson.
No, one form, we asked for someone's date of birth, and he put down his telephone number. This one has the pastor's date of birth. I'm not sure why we need his date of birth. I mean,
We just wanted you to know he's old enough to be a pastor.
it's okay.
Okay.
I
well,
know it sounds small, but I mean, we have a consistency of being inconsistent.
I will gladly take advantage of your past with doing these kinds of things and take your assistance. Thank you.
I would
we can look
also
into that. That'd be great.
like to help out.
Excellent. Free labor.
Ed, I don't want to help.
I know
out.
you don't, sir.
I work, so I won't be able to help you either. But anyway, let's move on to item D3, Madam Clerk.
Application by Western Rhode Island Civic Historical Society, Payne House Museum at 7 Station Street, Coventry, Rhode Island, historic brass band to perform on 9/28/19 at 1 p.m.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. President, for approval on this. And I would also request the council to approve waiving of the licensing fee. This is to benefit Payne House, which is one of the many historic structures we have in town that is open to the public and allowed to be entertained and to be seen. So I'd like to make those two motions.
Okay, and I think they do this on a yearly basis. We have a motion, we have a second.
I will second
We
it.
have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, Madam Clerk, E1, please.
Tax assessors additions and abatements.
Good evening, how are you?
Good evening. Good, thank you. So I've got our first batch of the year after the tax bills went out, so we've got rather large numbers on both ends, but the good news is we've got about 25,000 more in additions than we have in abatements. It's a long list. If there's any questions on any specific items, I'd be more than happy to go over any reasons why we did what we did.
Now I've had a chance to look them over. I thank you for that thorough list.
Sure.
There's quite a few. Does anybody have any questions before we ask for a motion? I've looked them over and, just basically we have a very thorough list of the reasons why they were evaded and added.
No, I'd say that was a great job.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Easy to read, easy to understand.
So
We're moving in the right direction.
Appreciate
nobody
that.
has any questions.
Make a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion for approval. Mr. Cody made the motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried. That was easy for you tonight.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we're gonna save it till next time, don't worry.
Okay, item E2, Madam Clerk.
Resolution for adoption of the established statewide building permit fee scheduled per Rhode Island General Laws 23-27.3-119.
Okay, I see Kevin, you must be up here for an explanation.
I am. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It was brought to our attention by our new building official that the State of Rhode Island Building Department indicated that we were not in compliance with the state law. It seems that the law was passed in 2017, and at that time, our former town manager didn't bring it forward to the council for action. They have indicated to us that failure for us to take action on it is going to require them to take action on this town for not following the state law. So we adopted the resolution in front of you based upon the state law. We had the permit fees will bring this into contention. There's not one building permit fee that actually is less than the new permit fees are more than what we were charging. So this, in fact, will be able to provide to us approximately 25 to 26% increase in our fees, which is something that we're looking to do to try to offset some of our expenses.
And this is state law, so we really
This is
don't
state
have-
law. We do not have a choice on this.
All right, so we've looked it over. Does anybody have any questions from the council? If none, the chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, the next item, stay right up there. The next item, Madam Clerk, would be E3, please.
Resolution to award bid for sewer pipeline extensions and repair contract.
Explanation, please, Kevin.
Yes, this is a continuation of a resolution, third time that we've done this. The last time was on May 8th of 2017 that the town council approved this. It's to 2 years. And what this is any time that a applicant, whether it be a company or a resident, wishes to tie into an existing sewer line, that there is not a lateral there, or the sewer line may not extend to their house. We don't want Joe's Landscape Company tying in, digging into the town street, tying into our mains. We want reputable companies that can provide the service, and the entire cost is borne by the applicant. There is no cost to the town. So we've had a lot of people on New London Turnpike, when that was installed by West Warwick Sewer back in the day, no laterals to Coventry houses were provided. So anytime somebody wants to tie in, they've got to come before whoever the applicant is, the company is. They get a quote from them. The company provides a bond to the town, and check is paid up front, and the work is done, and then the company's paid on that money.
Just seems so foolish why they would have done that years ago without putting laterals in.
But there's other streets also, like Ames Street, where somebody wanted to tie in from where the West Warwick line ends, or any of our lines, if it stopped at a certain point and someone wanted to bring it up one more house, they totally would bore the cost of that work.
And I see the two bids you received, and one of them was almost half of what the first one was.
And
so-
Deammer is the company who has been the low bidder for the last 2 contracts.
And you're happy with the work Deammer's been doing with these?
We are, and the city of Warwick has been using them for the last 10 years.
Okay, no issues. Okay, does anybody have any questions from the council? Yes.
My questions are, there are separate resolutions regarding all of these, from what I can see, correct? Or is it just one resolution?
Just one resolution
All right, I'm sorry, these are,
for Deammer.
these, well, the first is just a bid, but it wasn't awarded?
Correct, there was 2 bids.
Okay.
We provided the bids, and,
Okay, Boyle and Fogarty is just, there's no resolution for them? It's
no,
strictly
they were the high bid, they were almost double the
That's the
cost.
question I needed to do it. At this point, Mr. President, I will recuse myself from the vote on this.
Yeah, okay, fine. You have a question?
I do. And I don't know if you can answer this, Kevin, but I was going through the list price. A lot of discrepancy.
Such as?
Back and forth. I mean, I don't know if you have our packet. page 113.
I do not have your packet, no.
Okay, okay, I don't know, let's see, it would be under the schedule of prices under Deambra,
Okay.
okay? It's
What item number that you're talking about?
item 59.
Kevin, would you like to?
Yeah, and I didn't notice the, oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so item 59 with, what's the name of the company? Boyle and then Deambra. Deambra has the 1-inch diameter replacement clean out. This is $1. And the other company is $2,000. Then you go down one more, the 1-inch diameter replacement also, $1. The other one, $2,000. And we go down all the way, there's all $1, $1, $1, $1. These are $2,500, $3,000, $3,000, $3,500. How does Deambra do it for $1 and the other company is charging thousands?
I would assume since Deambra has been doing this for the last 4 years, that they understand that the chances of them using this one item is probably less. Boyle and Fogarty has never bid this before, so they're bidding it based upon something that we may or may not use. Deambra or any other company would be required to do the work at the price that they're awarded.
So Deambra would do the work for
$1.
$1.
That one item would be $1, yes.
Yeah, they have to, under the contract.
Yeah.
I've seen on.
How did, I guess I'm
There's-
trying to
there's actually
understand, how
time-
does one company only charge $1 and the other company charges 200?
There's some companies, ma'am, that would actually bid a penny, because that's not where their money is, in manholes or something else. That's where their money is. I can't determine why they would bid that amount, but that's the amount that they would be held to in the event that someone was looking to have work done.
I can tell you the company I work for, when it comes to flaggers, we penny rate the flaggers.
Even though it costs $40 an hour.
Right.
Yep.
Okay,
I mean,
because,
and it's just,
so, because out of here, I compared back and forth between the
Yeah.
two. And
So
there
did
was-
we.
Pardon?
I did too, and so did the town engineer. We looked at both
yeah, there's
bids.
many of them.
Yeah, there's many $1. I'm just trying to understand. There's only 1, 2,
Well, I think,
3.
like you said, most of the items that are listed low, the probability of using them pretty slim, but if they do have to, that particular item would have to be done for $1, but they've probably done many of them, and that's not where the issue, arises, when they do a lateral or.
Yeah, but I guess how do I know with the town, we would see a change order. How would we know that this
The
is?
only thing we care about is the bottom line.
I get it, but
Well-
how do we know if they're charging these folks? Are we assured that they're charging them only $1?
Yes, ma'am. They would have to provide a unit price. How their bid is designed for them to develop the price would be based upon these items. They would have to show item number 59, and they'd have to show that cost of $1. And those would be down, item by item, would be verified by myself, the town engineer. And that's what would be going forward to the applicant, and they would have to provide the check for that. There's no cost to the town.
Oh, I get that, but the cost is gonna go on to someone. I just wanna make sure that would be
Everything, Deb, everything they're dollaring
Yeah.
is inch and a half, inch and a quarter, 2-inch in existing manholes, which means they're changing a riser. They're changing they're adding a piece of metal this big, a riser, and putting the same cover back on top of it. They're probably buying them for $1 a piece.
Okay, so I guess that's why I'm asking, why are these folks charging $2,000, $2,500,
Because they haven't done the bid
$3,000?
before, ma'am, so they're looking at it differently, because they haven't had a chance to see what actually is used by the applicants. Deambra has had some experience and realizes the majority of items that are needed are what they're bidding on, the numbers that they are higher numbers. Whether it be, if you go to item number 9, which is a trench excavation, they've got $600 per cubic yard. So there are other items where they would make up the difference.
I mean, the lowest prices, per unit prices, are gonna be passed right on to the taxpayers. Well, obviously, if it requires $1, that's what taxpayer's gonna pay, so we want the cheapest price for the taxpayer also.
I understand.
Yeah,
I just
so-
want to make sure that there wouldn't be a change order that would come in.
No, they would be held to the line items.
Okay, because I mean, we've awarded contracts also, and we get change orders that come in, so I just want to make sure that,
But in normal contracts, we would identify what the quantities would be. Here, if it is D'Ambra, they would have to identify the quantities that they're going to charge for, and that's the amount that they would be charging the applicant, whether it be a company or whether it be a resident.
okay, when did the last contract expire?
2 years ago, the last one was just signed by the town council May of 2017. So we're 2 years, we're
Okay, so
maybe a
this
month
is-
or two over.
This is a one-year contract or 2-year?
No, this is actually 2 years. They've all been 2-year contracts.
Okay, because we don't have a copy of the contract, we just have this information.
Well, the contract is in that book that you received. All the contracts are part
Oh,
of
I
that.
didn't get the book.
We
Everybody-
didn't pass out the book to everybody.
But everybody, I mean, it was sent
Printing.
over by format, digital format. So we didn't have to provide that to everybody. If you want to look at that, the contract is there. It's already in part of it.
What's my name?
Okay, and this is not for you, Kevin. I know Nick and I had a conversation earlier because I was a little concerned with the Rhode Island Gen.Laws. And I know you and I, but I will, Carrie, if you mind, just so going forward, I want to make sure that when we put these RFPs out, that we follow the Rhode Island Gen.Laws. And one in particular was what we have to state on how we award the bid. And I want to make sure, because I know you and I, Nick, disagree on this, but because the invitation to bid, this actual invitation to bid does not state how we are awarding the contract, even though the state law states it should be in the invitation to bid. And I know when we put it on the town website, how we award the contract is in the bid packet itself, buried in the bid packet. I am requesting that we make sure that we put it on the bid invitation, the one that you put on the town website, the one that we advertise in the newspaper.
So whatever your legal opinion is if we should do it. If you say it's good, good. If not, if you think it needs to be looked at and changed, I mean, you are the
I
solicitor.
don't think that the ad has to specify what is required in Title 45, Chapter 55, Section 5B. That's
B,
what,
would you like to read Section 5B?
Sure, if you
Please.
want. It says, 5B says, the invitation for bids shall state whether award shall be made on the basis of the lowest bid price or the lowest evaluated or responsive bid price. If the latter basis is used, the objective measurable criteria to be utilized shall be stated in the invitation for bids if available. And then the next following section, that's section C of the same statute, says adequate public notice of the invitation for bids shall be given a sufficient time prior to the date stated in the notice for the opening of bids. And then it goes on to specify how notice shall be given. But I don't read that as requiring that what is requiring in the preceding section necessarily has to be in the public notice for the invitation for bids. It has to be in the invitation for bids. But the public notice is usually just a very brief cursory statement that the town is entertaining bids for a certain service or a certain piece of equipment. I don't think you have to state it in there. Nonetheless, the town could do it if they wanted to. They could put it in there. What method are they going to use to award the bid? They could put it in the ad. I don't think it's required. And I did suggest to Ms. Bacon that if she wanted, she could make the pitch for that tonight, which she has. I see no harm in doing that. It's up to the council and the Director of Public Works and the town clerk when they advertise it.
Maybe I'm mistaken, somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, but in the past, we have usually awarded contracts to lowest qualified bidder.
Right.
And I think we've set precedent. We've done it so many times in the past. Lowest qualified bidder. First of all, I don't see any reason to change that tonight. Secondly, I actually think that it says somewhere in the charter that contracts will be awarded to lowest qualified bidder.
I think you're right.
If
Yes.
we're accepting bid packages from these companies, then we've already recognized them as a qualified bidder. We send the bid packages out. So if we're sending you a bid package, then we have recognized you as a qualified bidder.
Right.
If you happen to be the lowest, then typically, I would say 99.99% of the time, the council has awarded contracts to lowest qualified bidders.
That's not it,
Yeah,
Gary.
but I think the solicitor described it well. Let me just say, I think the solicitor described it well. We're just putting an RFP out for the people to bid. We don't have to put detailed and just a cover letter, letting them know that we're putting an RFP out.
No, I do understand that, but, with the Rhode Island General Law, it clearly states, in my opinion, that we shall state in the invitation to bid. Now, this is the invitation to bid, because when you go on the town website, when you pull up, when you look at when it was advertised on the town website, this is the invitation to bid. It does not state in the invitation to bid how we are awarding the contract. It is buried in, you would have to go into the attachment, the miscellaneous sewer extensions bid packet. I just want to make sure that we are following the general laws, that's all, that's all.
I just, and please, don't take this the wrong way, because I've got more respect for you than most people I know, so.
Not sure how to take that.
In your opinion, and I respect your opinion, and I hope I have proven that to you
Yes.
while we're serving together. But he's the guy that takes the taxpayers' money to give us legal opinions. So although I respect your opinion, I'm gonna go with the legal advice that we pay a guy to give us.
Okay.
Mr. Cody, also, the RFP has, the invitation to bid is in part of the RFP. It has everything that Mrs. Bacon is talking about is included in the RFP.
It's in the package.
It's in the
We're
entire
just not
package.
paying to advertise it.
That's exactly what it is. It's trying to keep that as small as possible, so
right.
our tax dollars
Right.
aren't wasted on a.
We're just not paying the Journal or wherever we're advertising. We're just not
Okay.
paying them to advertise
We've
it. I
had-
understand that.
She made a point, and we've had some discussion on it, so the chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
We make a motion to approve as read. Do we have a second?
Okay, the motion to approve is, okay, I make a motion to approve an award to D'Amber for miscellaneous sewer connections.
Correct, that is the
The motion as it should be.
That's what I meant to say.
Yes.
I second the
So
motion.
we second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda. Madam Clerk, item E5, please.
E4.
Or
Resolution
I'm sorry, yes.
authorizing creation of the Sewer Assessment Assistance Program to be administered by the Department of Human Services and funded solely by Waterman Fisk Fund.
Okay, Mr. Manager, or Ms. Slaughter, are you prepared to give an explanation of this?
Our finance director, John Arnett, is going to, along with our human services director, Bob Robillard,
Well, have a seat with John, if you would.
will be explaining what this is. This is our, please? Oh, that's, yeah, would you just pass those down a little bit? The purpose of this is, we have been going through all of the line items that were indicated in the Auditor General's report and the changes that we need to make and what they're requesting. This is, again, one more of the many things that we have started to change. There are more coming down in the next couple of meetings. One of the recommendations was that we have some type of assistance program to help people that, in the event that this is a burden to them. So we've come up with, John has done the vast majority of the work on this, coming up with this plan, and that's why I'm gonna let him explain it to you. But it offers two different types of assistance, covering when a new assessment comes out, and also if there is if people have a situation that develops after the assessment's in meeting the usage payment. So I'll let John, you've all got a copy of where it is. Again, this is just an opening salvo on this. It's on here for approval. If you approve, it's also obviously if you want to make changes or recommend changes. This is so everyone here can see it and understand where we're trying to go with this and trying to come up with an assistance program that is workable, beneficial, and not just tossing something out there. So,
Okay.
John?
All right, so I'll just do a very brief background on where I came up with this idea. I walked into here about a year ago, very close to a year now, and the memorandum of we stopped the program, and the contract for Arnold and Hazard had been basically finished. So I took a look at the home's values, and there was a lot of, and believe me, through this financial process, it was a learning experience, to say the least. So when I took a look, and I'll echo the gentleman that was up here before saying that you look at a sewer assessment going down on a value of a home that is sub $200,000, $150,000 value home, it didn't make a lot of sense. The public servant in me stepped up and said, there's got to be something that we could do for these people. So looking around, I read into the Waterman Fisk Fund. This is an amazing program that Coventry has to help the poor and the needy of the town. And when I was looking at this, I said to myself, if I was in that position, there's no way that I could come up with that assessment. And especially when I'm looking at when you have a program that's going on, and then there's a dollar cost, and then you have less people paying for that dollar cost. It's going to be more impactful to those that are there at the end of the day. So there's something had to be done. And the best way to do it, I found, would be this way. So looking at it upon the assessed value, so the way I wrote this would be residential only. I actually wrote it so that it had the codes in there as well to give it a little bit more teeth behind it, that it is residential only. And I did it under two means, one being the assessed value of the home and one being the income based. Now, you don't have to have both in order to qualify. You can qualify under one or the other. And it's there because I did a basic analysis of this, and it's much greater than 10 that would be a qualify for this program. And I thought that was a good thing. And so it's giving the intent of the Waterman Fisk Fund itself to the poor and the needy of town. It seems to fit. So if we were to put down a sewer line to a home that is $400,000 home, and the sewer line goes to $40,000, they still wouldn't qualify for this. It doesn't make sense. So that's why I wrote it that way. The other part would be the income base. Now, I tailored the...
John, why don't you give the numbers on the first part of it, on what the limits are?
What the limits are? So I wrote it as the 15% of the assessed value of the home. So the assessor has by plot number, the assessed value of every single home, every single property that was in the last contract. And I took that. I also included the credit for the pump as well. So that way I could see. Then I put the floor, and then this is a working document right here, so I can't really distribute it, and nothing's been absolutely finalized. I want another party to take a look at it again. But it's a significant number in red that would be assisted by that. So the dollar number on the very bottom, if this were to go as written, and if that these numbers are correct, I'd like to preface that enough times with ifs, you're looking at a total hit to the fund of $101,000. Now, the final question is, well, how do we have that much money available? So what we have right now in the trust fund, you want me to get into this now, or do you want me to move on to? Okay. So the trust fund has in it, as of June 30th, $2.699 million. $2,699,983. So that is what
Which
is
fund? Is that the Waterman Fund?
Fisk Trust Fund. What has happened over the past couple of decades as well is that the Waterman Fisk Fund has a cash account that sort of works as an operating account off to the side that doesn't generate as much interest. It has payments to it that was authorized 20 some odd years ago. And that has a value of, I pulled this today, $558,481, isn't it? Now, the way that the Waterman Fisk Fund is written is that it's for interest only. That is what can be used. Not in the trust fund, but I looked directly at this cash account, so not looking at the trust fund. There is $364,627 of interest income in that account alone. It generates last month $985 a month. So when I'm looking at the Waterman Fisk, yes, I see the trust fund is doing well over time. It's doing what's supposed to do. It's generating revenue. It's being reinvested back like it's supposed to. And then we have this other cash account that's used as operating. And Bob over here uses that to help people all the time. And it's great to see what good he does in this town with this. It's just amazing. So I look at that. We have the funds available on the interest portion of it, and and again, back to what I'm seeing to assist the town, as is written, and as again with all those ifs, $101,000 for that part. So we have the ability to do it. It's built within the parameters of what it was intended for, and it helps. I wouldn't say fully resolve, but having the empathy of the people of what's going on with those assessments, it's what I believe should be done and the way to help those people. So that was what I proposed. That's what I intended for the purpose of it. I am absolutely open to any suggestion to make this better and help as much as possible.
And something you have to remember with this, you're only going to see a hit to that fund if and when a new street gets completed and put onto the sewer. This is not something that will happen every year. That'll only occur if a new section of town has been sewered, and that initial assessment goes out the door, and then this program would be in play to help those people if their sewer assessment is in excess of 15% of the assessed value of their home.
Now, we've had an opportunity to read this, but Bob, maybe you could explain how it goes through your department to do the evaluation on whether they qualify.
It's really similar to all the work we do every day. We had assessed for the CDBG fund previously, and we did all the assessments for that, which are very much in line with these guidelines. So when folks were coming in to need renovations to their houses and they needed to meet those guidelines, our staff were able to assess them and find their eligibility. So it's exactly aligned with the federal poverty level, which actually our state utilizes a little bit more than just the federal poverty level. They're at like 125% of the federal poverty level, which is, I'll send you that information so you have the most updated levels. But folks will come in and we will assess them for residency. Obviously, we'll assess their assets. We have, in our evaluations, we've found folks had other properties elsewhere, and that all their assets are reviewed. All of their, we get their taxes, we get all of the income for the household. And some households have, pretty significant number of residents within that household. So it may put them off of this assistance program if you have multi-generations within the household. But they'll come in and we'll assess them for all of their income, assets, and and they will meet that if they meet that 15% threshold, then they would be eligible. We work really closely, both John and I, on making sure that there's a continuity in how we're approaching this. We've sat many meetings at this point to formalize how folks can come in and get the services. There is this particular Waterman Fisk Fund was set up quite some time ago, and it is specifically in writing for the poor and indigent folks. So folks that don't meet the poverty guidelines, they're eligible for services, so they can have those basic needs like food, shelter, and safety. So we do a lot of work on a daily basis with our elders in town who are on limited incomes, and our folks that are at those federal poverty guidelines to make sure that they get what they need throughout. And this just matches very much with our daily interaction with folks.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there anybody from the council have questions? Yes.
Mr. President, based on what I read, this is a one-time only grant.
That's
For
correct.
quality grant, and it's only for the first quarter sewer assessment payment. Is that correct?
That's what we resolved.
So
yeah.
it's one time only, okay? And I would just like to reiterate a statement I made earlier. Here's another piece of the sewer program, another piece of the puzzle, and I believe that we need to, as quickly as possible, have a meeting in which we look at the entire program, set some goals for ourselves, and put down all these pieces that we need to work on and the priorities in order.
And I agree with you, Mrs. Dickson, and that's what, we have done that internally, and that's why all of what you're seeing over the last several weeks and the things we're doing, and there's more coming, more proposals coming out further. We're trying to do this in a step-by-step basis. We're not piecemealing this. We are doing it in a planned way. We have other assessments that are coming due from Hazard Street and Arnold Road. We want this program in place before we get to that. There's the readjustment of the assessments for the town buildings. Once the police department building is done, and we have those numbers on that, that will then be added in so we can do that piece. That was also recommended in the Auditor General's report. We are doing this in a methodical, step-by-step way to take care of the problems. We are currently running right now, John, we're breaking even. We broke even this past year. We're doing the same going forward. We are trying to get us to the point where, that's why the critical piece is the rate study, to be able to take into account everything that's coming forward. This is not done, and I know you didn't mean it that way, or why, at least I'm hoping I'm not taking it that way. This has been very planned out and thought out, and we have been progressing through this to do it. If I'm overstepping or stepping on toes and taking more responsibility on than I should be, I apologize, and we will set a meeting and put this out with the council to do all of these other things. But we have been doing what I thought I was tasked with, which was to try and fix these issues that we're dealing with and trying to make the best for the taxpayers.
May I just say,
I
I
have-
think
yeah,
you have done a good job on, to put it together. I'm not opposed to setting up a meeting. I think these small
I'm not
steps
either.
we're taking, are things that are gonna have to be done, but I'm not opposed to setting up something and let's make a long-term plan. I'm really not opposed to that.
I have no doubt that you and Mr. Arnett and the rest of your staff have worked on a plan, and you use the word internally, you've been working on a plan. It's just that members of the council are not aware of what this plan is, and therefore it's very difficult for us to answer questions or even pose intelligent questions because we don't really know what the plan is. I do believe, that you are very honest in what you're saying, that you do have a plan, you're working on it. It's just that we're not privy to it.
All right, so yeah, we'll
We'll set up a
work on
meeting.
that, set up something, that's fine.
We'll set up a
Thank
meeting.
you.
Yes, Council.
No, I just wanted to say basically what Ann
Yeah,
was
no,
saying.
I think it's a
And
good
I
idea.
didn't mean to insult by saying piecemeal, but, Ann is correct. I don't know what is going on behind the scenes. So when I have folks asking me, should I put in a septic system? I don't know. I don't have that information. That's why I'm asking for all the information. And we just, 1 month we have something for sewers, we go a couple of months, nothing's on. A couple more months go by, we put something on for sewers. And now you're saying that assessments are going out for Hazard Street?
No. I
What
did
did
not
you
say
say? No,
that.
what did you say?
I said we want this in place before
Before.
we start that process with them.
And so,
Not that they're going out
Which
before
means,
we
but
get to that process.
before you get to that process, eventually they will. But I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
They need to go out, they have to go out, but we want to have this assistance program, if you so agree with it, in place so we can, you're hearing the numbers and we'll have more firmer numbers when we look at a couple of other pieces on it. I mean, John's done, I take that back. We know the numbers that we are looking at. if something changes on any of the assessments that were actually being calculated. There could be probably more instead of the less. We're looking at, John, 22 potential
22.
potential households that would be affected by this between Hazard and Arnold Road.
And from what I see here, every house on Hazard that had a sewer would be given a sewer assessment would qualify under what I see here in front of me.
Okay, so I mean, I think.
Does Ann have any other questions? Because I have some.
Yeah.
No?
Okay, you have a couple
I
questions?
do have some
Yes.
questions. Bob, I have a question. So if a resident came and can't pay their property taxes, can the Waterman Fisk Fund be used for that?
It has been used in the past.
To pay property taxes?
On a very, I think, in my 24 years prior to coming back, I think we've utilized it like twice.
Okay.
And it was
But-
for a very specific, very involved cases that absolutely had no other alternative and would not be able to maintain their property.
Okay, but it was basically made for food, shelter, and safety, correct?
Food, shelter, and safety, yes.
Okay, but the sewer program is a mandated program that we are forcing on the residents. It is not their doing. They don't have a leaky roof that they need repair, that their house would be condemned. We're actually forcing this on them, correct?
Yes, and they could also have a leaky septic system as well around
They
the lake.
could, but they could actually go and
But they're going-
possibly
and
just
they-
get a septic system. But what I'm concerned with is that we are taking from the Waterman Fisk Fund to go pay for the sewer fund. So I have a lot of questions about this.
Every year now, Mrs. Bacon, we take the Waterman Fisk Fund pays for students to go to summer camp.
Okay, can I?
That goes into
Good, that's a
the fund.
segue into my next, because I tried to figure out, I didn't realize Waterman Fisk. I thought it was one fund. It's actually Waterman Fund, Fisk Fund.
Yes, and they were actually combined into the trust funds a few years ago, but they were combined into one Waterman Fisk, the trust funds.
Because I'm trying to figure all of this out, trying to go through town documents and everything. So I put different notes from the town council meetings. What I can find, the last detailed report that the town council received regarding the Waterman Fisk Fund was back September 23rd, 2013. And it broke down exactly, can I just finish? Broke down exactly what was spent. I mean, that year from April 1st, because Pat Shirtliff had to come every 6 months before the council to give the report. April 1st through September 1st, 2013, totaling expenditures, $66,000. Specific areas were broken down as follows. Rent and mortgage, $8,215. Emergency home heating, $36,000. Medication, $1,813. Camperships for Parks and Rec, $20,000. Washington Street building renovation supplies, not sure why that was in there, $3,000. And emergency septic pumping, $455. Now, fast forward to 2015, December, the council did receive some sort of a presentation. I'm not sure because it was not attached to the meeting minutes. So basically, since all these years, about 5 years, we have not received a detailed report on what is going on, what is the expenditures, what is coming in. Don't you think that we should possibly take a look at that? There have been some grants, there have been loans. Is this a grant or a loan program?
I would be more than happy to get onto a program where I start providing you that information on, at least biannually. That would make a lot of sense.
I think
And
what they did in the past, every 6 months would be,
so that makes sense to me. 2015 is a long time to go without knowing that
actually,
there's-
it's even longer. A very detailed report was 2013.
Right, so that's a long time prior to me coming in.
Very much.
Yeah, so we do have the trust fund, we do have the bank account, and I can provide those informations. You keep detailed information.
I'd be more than willing to give you a full report.
That would be great.
That's not an issue whatsoever.
Oh, because the council hasn't received it, because I do have the.
You will get one as soon as we can put it together.
We
Thank
will
you.
have a report on the agenda for next meeting on the 9th.
Okay, because
We have all the information. We'll pull it together and do a presentation, absolutely.
that'll be terrific. The Citizens Advisory, October 12th, 2016, our former Finance Director Bob Tebow gave a report, And one of in the bullet points that he has, a clear accounting of funding for the perpetual care needs to be determined. They were talking about the cemetery fund, wondering if that was being used out of the Waterman Fisk. So I think we need to look exactly, I'm just going by what was in the.
I'm sorry for the facial. I apologize for the facial contortions. I was just thinking back on this because I actually looked at the cemetery fund pretty intently when I first got here. I went back to 2000 and just looked at how much was in there over time. So I would be more than happy to look to see if it took place as far as Waterman Fisk to the cemetery funds. But again, I would be more than happy to do a detailed report.
Okay, great. So getting back to this, is this a loan or a grant? I'm sorry.
It would be a grant directly to them. It's not a loan. It would be straight off the top, getting them from, let's say that it was 20%, the assessed value, or the assessment was 20% of the assessed value to the house. It would pay down to that 15% floor, and then that would be the new assessment rate.
Okay, but they would still be responsible for,
The 15% below.
and they would still be responsible for decommissioning the septic or the cesspool, whatever they have?
I have this in this with the pump. Now, I have in here with the pump credit, so that portion of it, I did not
Oh, I didn't
put
even get
into-
to that yet, the pump credit. Okay.
I haven't looked too intently on every single thing that could be added into it. Again, this is just for you all to take a look at and give me suggestions on including into this.
The decommissioning is required, ma'am.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand that, but this is something that we are forcing the residents. That's what I'm saying. I mean, so I think we need to be very clear on exactly what all the costs are. I mean, no matter what, if they're at poverty level, they're not gonna be able to afford this no matter what. I mean, we're not paying the full amount, we're just paying a
No, we're
little
not.
teeny tiny
But then
portion.
they're applying to the Waterman Fisk to help replace their septic system, because they gotta have some place to poop. So if their septic system's failing, if the Waterman Fisk is gonna help them with the sanitary sewer lines.
Have you done?
they-
Actually, what you just read said we did that. We have helped people with their septic systems, and we've also
Like
utilized.
pumping
That's the
out,
only
no,
reason I said it.
no,
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
talking
the-
about replacing the entire septic
Well,
system.
we worked with the community development block grants previously to do that, because if they meet those guidelines,
Okay,
they have actually done that previously for other clients in town, so.
Okay, Ms. Baker, you have some more questions?
not at the moment, and probably in a minute, I just
Okay.
wanna look something
Yeah,
over.
I mean, this is like preliminary, we're looking this over, any suggestions, any changes? How about anybody else from the council? Does they have any? I mean, an action doesn't have to be taken tonight if we're not,
What I would prefer, if the council so agrees, is, yeah, I'd like to table it. I'm not looking for a vote today. It's on there only because we needed to put it the way we did. I'd like to get your individual inputs into this. I'd also, now that it's out in public, and the public has it, I'd like to get some input from the public on it. If they want to send an email to myself or to John and give us their ideas and their suggestions, I want to hear from them. That's what this was about. This wasn't about doing it tonight. It's about getting it out there tonight and
I mean, I
getting.
think it's a good idea, but yeah, certainly some more ideas, some suggestions would help make it even better.
Motion to table.
Excuse me for 1 second. I just wanted to make a point that this is just the beginning of the discussion. And that's why we wanted to bring it forward. We want to have some semblance of a next step. And with your guidance, and the guidance from the public, I think we'll go in the right direction.
Okay, thank you.
I'm
yes.
sorry, could I just make a suggestion when we discuss this again? Could we have, I don't know if it would be a public hearing, or could we just do public comment on this item? Folks could come up and speak with us in case they don't want to have email, they just want to get up and speak to us. Could we do that?
We could do the public comment, but that's going to be up to the council to
Yeah,
decide if
I
they
mean,
want
if
to
they
do
don't
that.
have
I have no
emails,
objection.
A phone call can go into the town manager, to John. I mean, yeah, we could do that.
Could we do that?
I still think that, yes.
May I make one more small comment? Something that I've heard also is using principal balance and then the entire lifetime of the loan as including interest at the very end. I would advise against that. It's very similarly to when you go apply for a loan at a home, you don't use principal plus your interest, you say what your principal balance is. When you look at a credit card, how much do you owe on a credit card? You don't say, well, I owe $20,000 on my credit card, but over the next 10 years I'll pay $40,000. It's $20,000 is what you owe. So that would be my suggestion as comments come forward, to just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I would, I'd like to see on the next agenda as well too, that, seeing as we're talking about the Waterman Fisk Fund, we have never taken any actions to replace the folks who were formerly on the committee. I think it was listed as Board of Directors online. And from the past, it's normally been the Human Services Director, the Finance Director, and one council member who has been a part of that, so.
That came up during this whole, and that's part of
I
next.
think we need to reappoint people to that. And
Do I have a
again,
volunteer?
Now, I don't know, do we have a volunteer from the council who'd like to go on the Waterman Fisk Fund trust, not the trustee, the committee?
What does it mean to be on it?
Well, it's
Board of Directors.
It's an advisory board of directors, correct, because the council takes the ultimate actions. We are the trustees of the fund.
It would be with the town manager, with the finance director, or
You know,
human
but
services.
traditionally, I believe, I don't believe it, unless it calls for those specific
Well, I think
positions.
Could we
Go
have,
on, but I
well,
think
we don't, it's an informal committee. Can Ann and I sit on that, if Ann is interested?
Well, it calls for one council person along with
Where does it,
you know,
where does it say that? Because I couldn't find that.
well, I'm going from traditionally where it was back there. For instance, it was always 3 people.
Yeah, I
The
couldn't
human-
find anything.
Years ago, in other words, I was the quote representative in probably 2004.
We will do the research and find the original resolution.
But
And-
from, just from going from what it's been one council member, like I said, Human Services Director,
Yeah.
and the Finance Director.
Mr. Manager, why don't you do the research, and if it says anything that,
So if it's one, it'll be one of the two ladies. If it's two, you both want to be on it.
There you go.
We'll flip
Yes,
a coin.
please.
Flip a coin. I have
We'll
no
flip,
problem,
yep.
whatever the resolution says, I have
See
no
it,
problem
duke
with
it out.
Yeah, you can duke it out, yeah.
That's a very veiled term.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, right. I was just repeating. All right, so if there's no other questions, I think we should have a motion to table.
I made a motion to table.
We have a motion to table?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, Madam Clerk,
Thank you, gentlemen.
yes, item, I believe it's E5 this time. Okay.
Resolution authorizing disbursements from Waterman Fisk Fund as follows: $14,000 to Coventry Food Bank, $5,000 to Tears the Season, $1,000 to Coventry Community Garden.
Okay, explanation. I know we've done this in the past. John, do you wanna?
Oh.
I'm sorry, Bob.
That's okay. John and I have sat on this as well. The last time that these figures were dealt with was back in 1999. They were significantly less. I'll start with our food bank. We service about 500 people per month. About a quarter of them are families with children. We have found recently from the state of Rhode Island Food Bank that their donations have been significantly reduced, and we still have to obtain food for the people that need it here in town. We have a lot of elders, individuals with disabilities of all kinds. We have working poor families who utilize our food bank throughout the year. We also are connected very closely with the local businesses who also make donations. And even with those donations, which are down this year as well, we are in need of a change in rate from 1999 to 2019, 20 years later, to make sure that we were able to continue to provide those services. At the time, in 1999, the community garden was not across the street. It didn't exist. It's been there for 11 years. We have utilized town funds for one of the fencing when we first started. The rest has been donation. It's entirely volunteer driven through it started with the URI Master Gardeners program. We have Master Gardeners here in town that donate their time. Volunteers have run the community garden and I think they do an incredible job. When I give you my report for the Waterman, I'm also going to give you a report on how many pounds of produce we've had in the 11 years. Yes, many, many tons, actually. And it's organic food. So one of the things we really focus on is a lot of the families that get free and reduced lunch at school. So that's 2 meals a day. Now you're in the summertime. To feed a family and make sure that they have nutritious food and not just canned food, or, we want to make sure that we're providing as best nutrient value for the folks here in town too. So we have utilized the Boy Scouts, 4-H, a variety of the schools have become involved. We have senior volunteers. We have a couple of group homes for individuals with developmental disabilities that also have volunteered over the years. URI Master Gardeners had started it, but we've taken it on as our own. 11 years later, it's still providing food to the people in town, and we're really proud of that. And everything that's grown there goes to our food bank. So we've never asked for a penny from the town up until this year. I recently wrote a grant for the New England Grassroots Fund, Environment Fund, excuse me, and they are going to be hooking up city water to our drip irrigation system that we just put in there, which is going to save time, it's going to save money, it's going to save resources. So what we're trying to do is have $1,000 a year for gas, for our mowers, for our weed whackers, for all the things that you need to do to run a garden, which is also all of our organic fertilizer. We also are trying to maximize the small amount of funds that we have for that particular project and maximize the outcome. So I'll give you a full report on the outcome of how many tons of produce have come out of that garden. And also the 'Tis the Season program has been a program for many years at this point that provides, it's very similar to Christmas Is. It actually started in West Warwick. We did a joint venture, and then we ended up, and I can't remember the year because it was a while ago, but the 'Tis the Season program provides food, clothing, and toys for children during the Christmas season. We have had a great deal of effort in fundraising and donations, and it's an expensive project. And we also work closely with the schools. We have adoptive families. We have businesses that do that as well. And just to maintain those ongoing programs, and I really think it makes a huge difference for folks that absolutely wouldn't be able to do the things that they are able to do during the Christmas season. So the ask is out of the Waterman Fund, an increase in each of those categories. And obviously there wasn't a community garden line before, but we are continuing to provide that service.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Hi, Bob. You said 1999. Did you mean 2009? Because we had a resolution.
I'm sorry, 2009.
Okay,
I did.
Good.
I
All
did.
right. I just
Yeah,
wanted to make sure.
There's a 10-year difference. I'm sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So you're
Yeah.
just looking for an increase because in 2009 it was 12,000 to Coventry Food Bank
Correct.
and 2,000 to 'Tis the Season.
And the community garden was just getting into existence at
Yes,
that time.
yep. So you're just looking for a small increase in both, correct?
That's exactly what we're looking
And then
for.
adding the community garden. Okay,
yes,
and is
ma'am.
that enough for the community garden?
I think it is
1,000?
because we also, we one of the things about our department is we do lots of fundraising.
Okay,
We actually are going to be doing a 'Tis the Season fundraiser, and I'll get that information out to you folks. It's going to be in October. I just can't remember the date off the top of my head.
Okay.
But we also have run golf tournaments for the community garden. We've run steak fries. We've done a variety of fundraisers as well. We're going to continue to do that. I think that the community is very much invested. There's youth groups that want to continue to be part of this, and connecting the middle school to our garden has always been a priority too.
okay, great. And my question is for Nick on this one. On the back page of the first whereas,
We will correct that, we will add it in.
oh, okay. Well, I'll publicly, because no one knows what I'm talking about. It states that the position of the Coventry Town Council that the assistance to be provided by the food bank, the Coventry Food Bank, and 'Tis the Season is consistent with the purposes of the trust. It was left out the community garden. I wanted to make sure that was added in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, you have a question?
You didn't throw it up? Okay.
Actually, we're gonna get a report the next time, on there.
At the next scheduled
All right,
town
'cause-
council
'cause I
meeting,
mean,
sure.
The amounts that were listed, 12,000 and 2,000, those are annual amounts that we've been drawing, or they hasn't been drawn since that year?
I cannot give you that information because I'm not sure off the top of my
Okay.
head.
Because I don't recall, them coming before us on an annual basis to draw those funds.
Annually?
It is written as
on
annual.
an annual basis.
I know at one point what the council used to do was give X amount of dollars at the beginning of the year to Pat. And it would go in at the beginning and then it would be dispersed there. I think a few years ago was when they started switching or trying to switch over
Yeah,
to
because,
an
again,
annual
even in that
on each
year, too,
one.
I see, there's a lot of additional disbursements, but I've never seen, and again, so if all of these disbursements require the approval of the trustees, I haven't seen that come, unless it was back then in a total dollar amount, but that's why I'll look forward
I'll
to seeing
research
the
that and get
reports.
back
Well,
to
let's
you.
make it right moving forward,
Carrie-
Let's,
Absolutely.
yes, absolutely.
Back on March 23rd, 2009, there was a resolution passed, that packet that I gave you, that the Waterman Fusk income be used to fund the 'Tis the Season and Coventry Food Bank. I wonder what that, I couldn't find the resolution itself, but I wonder what it actually states. But I think we need to look into that. Have you been
Just
receiving
whether
that
it's
money?
been- Whether it's been on an annual basis for them or
Exactly.
not, and again, not seeing any of that, because we certainly, but I mean, when you're looking at funds, of 2.6 million, I think the funds have been going up. And again, maybe we haven't been dispersing the funds to the organizations that need them.
Yeah,
You
and
have
it-
that research, Bob.
Yeah, and it did say in here, and back in 2009, the funds produced 40,000 in income. So they were doing very well back in 2009.
Hopefully they do better next year.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of the resolution authorizing disbursements from the Waterman Fisk Fund. $14,000 Coventry Food Bank, $5,000 'Tis the Season, $1,000 for the Coventry Community Garden.
Okay,
I second the motion.
we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
With the correction of adding community
correction
garden.
of adding
On the resolution.
Yes.
Okay, you want to add that correction in there, Mr.
Yeah,
Yes, could
well,
you
he
add-
made it all three.
Just
of them,
did.
but that's just on
Yeah,
the
but you made the
resolution
motion.
itself.
Oh, with that correction.
Yeah.
Thank
I make the motion with that correction.
All right, do we have a second? Ian has a second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. If you kindly get that information for us next meeting, that'd be great. Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay, the next
Getting
item on the
late, Mr.
agenda,
President. I'm
Madam
sorry,
Clerk, item E6, please.
Discussion on land trust option to purchase property, Plat 66, Lot 1, and the land trust recommendation.
I see you're ready to give a discussion.
Slide 129, please.
Good evening.
Good evening. I asked the town manager to put this on your agenda. For those of you who may not be aware, back in 2002, when the town acquired the 72 acres of open space at the Mahoney property, the town also acquired an option to purchase on the 17-acre farm that still remains out on Flat River Road. At the same time, we also purchased the development rights to that property. So the property as it is preserved, but the family did give us notice of their intent to sell the farm, which triggers our option to purchase the 17
That's
acres.
the area in the front.
Right, the area all around the farmhouse, the farm fields, the area surrounding the historic cemetery to the eastern side.
Including the house and the garage?
Including the house and the garage.
Well, the front we've been maintaining anyway. Parks and Recreation's been going up and cutting the lawn
And it used to be a battle.
Yeah.
Since we already own the development rights, the property is is protected. Anybody who comes along who buys the property can't do anything with it, that they can't subdivide it, they can't create
Right,
a
they can,
neighborhood
all they
there.
could ever be there is a gentleman farm.
You
All they
could
can do
be,
is
17
there
acres of farmland and a house.
in a house, yep.
I did talk to the attorney representing the owners to see if there was any interest in maybe selling us a portion of the property. The response was that they weren't interested in doing that as part of the option to purchase. So in terms of the option that's before you now, it's all or nothing. I did put this before the land trust for a recommendation to you. Their recommendation was that there really doesn't seem to be a sound financial case to acquiring the parcel of property. As beautiful it is, as it is, we just don't have a need for the structure or taking on the responsibility to maintain the structure.
If they sell it, will we still have to maintain the park-like appearance that I believe that was in the original agreement?
Whatever was in the original agreement, we would still have
We
to
would still
follow
have-
through on.
Okay.
I'm not sure, having looked at the development rights or any of that, there was a written agreement to do all the maintenance. So I would have to take another look at it.
I believe there was.
Rather-
Yeah,
It's in there for a couple of
Oh,
times,
yeah.
for cutting the grass.
Oh, yeah, as a matter of fact,
Grass cutting is part of
when
it.
we found that Parks and Rec didn't have the equipment to do it, we actually used to hire someone in the farm industry, which ended up being Mr. Mahoney's son, who had the equipment to actually cut the all of that. But he was hired to do that by the town, because that was part of the
Yeah,
agreement.
whatever is in there is in there. It's, what we agreed to do as part of acquiring the
So you-
development
but-
rights to the property.
So the
But I
land
wanted to
trust,
see if it was sold, if that continued forward, or if somebody who bought
Well,
it.
it's either that or we give up our development, the
Yeah,
owner, the
yeah.
development rights.
Yeah, no,
well, we're not
yeah,
gonna
no,
give
no,
up,
no,
we're
no,
not gonna
yeah.
give up the development rights, so the land trust is making this decision very easy for us. They don't recommend that we go for it.
They
I
don't
mean,
recommend
and,
it.
and they do not want, to break it up and give us that right away that we would like to get access to our property. So, I mean, if the land trust is not, suggesting that we purchase that, or they don't have the funds, it's pretty cut and dry.
Do we know what what the taxes are on the 17 acres?
I'm not sure I put that into your memo. I did have it all in the memo that I prepared for the land trust, which
Yeah, I
I
didn't see
don't
it in
have
that
for
memo.
me, with me, unfortunately.
So if they decide to come back and have a change of heart with that right away, that would be something the land trust would consider then.
Well, yeah, what's gonna happen is, assuming you do not exercise your option to purchase tonight, the owners then have an obligation to offer the property to various nonprofits. As I put in my memo, the abutting property there is also owned by Audubon. I notified Audubon that the property might be available. Whether they have any interest in it, I don't know. But eventually, the property would come out and be offered for sale on the open market. At that point, maybe we can sit down with them and negotiate a deal to buy some acreage off the eastern side, which would give us much improved access to the open space in the back. So hopefully they remain open to that possibility
Yeah, because the
down
only
the line.
access at this point in time is going to be through the new development off of Reed Schoolhouse Road.
No, we actually have a right-of-way off of Flat River Road on the western
Yeah,
edge of the
if-
property.
If you want to wear your
Yeah,
wading boots
it
to try
dumps
to
you
get
into
through
a
the
swamp.
wetlands.
Yeah.
Along the wall.
Yeah, so it's not very functional. The access that we just acquired through Reed Schoolhouse Road is much more functional to getting access to the property. But it would be nice to have access off of Flat River
Oh,
Road, and
absolutely.
we would have the possibility of maybe putting a small parking area down there as well.
Well,
So-
if the council chooses to go with the land trust recommendation and not exercise its option, if you do hear about it coming up on public market, if you'll let me know, I'll go sit with Timmy and have a civilized gentleman's conversation with Timmy and see what we can do about getting, at least purchasing enough access for a right-of-way to the open space in the back.
That would be appreciated, and I'm gonna stay in contact with the attorney. This may, splitting the property up in like this may actually wind up being a good option for them. Who knows? So I will just make sure I tickle that.
I know,
every
I
now
knew
and then.
now that mom and dad are gone, I didn't think Timmy was gonna keep it very long. It's a lot to keep up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, comments, I mean, I'm open to a motion.
I don't think there's any motion necessary, not the
Well,
way it was written on the agenda.
If,
Said
Oh,
for
I'm sorry,
discussion.
discussion, okay.
if
So-
you don't act, you don't exercise
yeah,
the option, nothing happens.
All right, so yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go by what the land trust is recommending, so I'm fine.
Okay.
We're good, thank you very much for
Thank
that
you.
presentation.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. Because we've had such a long agenda, I'm gonna ask that you really stick to the 3 minutes, and anybody from the public would like to make a comment. Please give your name and address for the record, please.
Hello. Bradford Mayor, 360 Hope Furnace Road. The passage of the amendment to the sewer ordinance earlier, C2, was there supposed to be a hearing tonight about that? I'm only asking because in your packet on page 19, it says hearing date. And it lists tonight as another hearing date.
There's
on-
no schedule for a hearing, but let me,
The council already had a public hearing.
that was
For the first reading.
the first reading.
And
We
then
al-
you recommended that I make the changes, which I did.
Okay, yeah, we already did have that public.
So was there a
hearing.
misprint in your packet? Because it lists two different hearing dates and tonight being one of them. Was there a typo and it's supposed to say
I
passage date?
don't have that, what you're talking about.
It's on page 19 of your packet.
When that was done by the assistant clerk, she just meant to put down that there was a meeting tonight on it, not that it was a hearing, not a hearing. Because the only hearing.
So it
that
should have
was
read
required-
passage date 8/26, not hearing date. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody else have a comment? Name and address for the record, please.
James LeBlanc, 43 Hazard Street. The only assessments that the public knows about for the streets that already have sewers are the July 23rd, 2018. It was in that packet, and it was only Arnold, Dixie, and Sand. You talked a lot about hazard tonight. When are the residents gonna even know what their assessments are going to be? I don't know if you guys can talk about it or not, but I just feel like it's probably fair.
It is. As soon as we get this done, that's when we'll be moving forward on bringing that forth through the process, the correct process. When that packet was released back in July, that was when our former interim town manager, who had never had a play in this process and didn't know what the proper way to do that. He thought he was bringing it forward and needed to bring it forward the way he did. That wasn't the way it was supposed to come forward. That's why it was tabled. And that's why, actually, they shouldn't have been released at that point, until after they were done correctly. But yeah, Hazard Street, all of them will be in there. I believe when that was done, Hazard still had some outstanding costs that were not tabulated in on that. So that's why I was saying, we've got to finalize all of those numbers first, and then do the process the way it belongs being done.
Understood. And then the only thing I wanted to bring up was Warwick does do 30-year assessments, so I don't think it's a state law in totality.
I checked
think
the
it might be-
enabling
might be
legislation.
For Coventry, but
Yeah,
for
it's-
Coventry, it's 20. But I'm
is
just
20,
saying, other
that's right.
towns and cities do longer than 30. I mean, longer than 20.
Right.
And if someone has a working septic, it's greater than 10. It's actually 20 in Warwick as well. So just wanted to mention that.
It would
can
be
happen. It's
a change of the enabling
I
legislation.
understand, just like we
And I
did
can
with the
see
interest. Totally get it.
Senator Rogers is here,
Yep.
listening carefully.
Understood. We did it with the interest, so perhaps we can do it with that too.
Okay, thank you.
Anything
Anybody
is-
else have a comment?
I ask a question of something that wasn't on the agenda tonight? Is that?
You can mention, this is not a question answer. We've been very liberal about answering questions tonight, but you can actually make a comment on any subject you would like, yes.
Name and address, please.
Sure, it's Robert Latham, 95 Lakehurst. I've been a resident for 2 years. I'm kind of a new guy here. I sent a letter or email to Ms. Dickson, but she's saying that her email isn't working. I sent a subsequent one. I'm just looking for the original 1881 agreement with Quidneck Reservoir and any recorded addendums after that. Apparently there's also a 1994 agreement out there somewhere. I've been looking for it myself without having to ask too many people, and I can't find it anywhere. One of the reasons I say that, and I'm not really sure if you guys know, if you do, excuse me, I'm not trying to educate anybody, but every single property on the pond in their deed references that agreement. So when you sell your home, you're automatically agreeing to abide by whatever the original agreement was about flow. So it's very difficult when you sell your house to explain to somebody what the deed references, because I can't find it. I was here today looking for it. I couldn't find it. It's not necessarily recorded anywhere. So that's really what I'm looking for is, where is it? It affects every single person that has waterfront property. So I just really, like to get a chance to read it. And just a quick comment, you're talking about septic systems. Again, I don't know what you know and what you don't know. There's two different type of septic systems. There's cesspools and there's septics. They're two completely different animals. And if you try to sell your house with a cesspool, you're not going to get very far because it's not FHA financeable. One of the things that I do, I own a real estate company in town. I buy and flip houses. Every single house that I've bought and changed in Coventry, I've paid to do a new septic system. And the last one that I did wasn't anywhere near the water. It was on Linda Court, which is up here off, Calvin Town Road area. And it was recently $17,000. And that was a great water table, best case scenario. So recent numbers are a little bit higher, I think, than what people realize.
Between 18 and 22,000.
It's getting
with a great water table.
very expensive. For some oddball reason, we don't have access to gravel in the state, but whatever. That seems to be one of the costs. But if anybody could address that down the road, I'm going to continue looking for that agreement. I'd love to see it, to read it. It affects a lot of people.
Okay,
Thank you
very much, sir. Anybody else have a public comment? Yes. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Nancy Sullivan, 6 White Oak Court. And just for good of the order, we were talking previously with the Waterman Fisk Fund about helping people in our communities. And I'd just like to announce that on Sunday, the 1st, which is the Sunday of Labor Day, at Foster Country Club, the Society of St. Vincent's de Paul, who raises money and helps do a local food kitchen. They serve up to 500 people a week. They run a food pantry, and as you know, if there's people who are in jeopardy of having utilities shut off and things like that, they always go to the St. Vincent's de Paul Society. Well, this is a way, we do have some spots for golfers, should anybody want to golf for us this weekend. And you can call the St. Vincent's de Paul Society office to get more information or to make donations. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else would like public comment?